2023. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cerrone,
Present.
Ms. Doyle, Mr. Gatewood,
Present.
Ms. Johnson,
Present.
Mr. Ploger,
Present.
Ms. Simulton,
Present.
Ms. Swanson.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4.1 is our winter athletic recognition and our national merit semifinalists, I should say. So, board, at this time, I'd ask that you join me out front as we recognize our winter athletes.
Good evening, everyone. The Board of Education is proud to acknowledge and recognize the award-winning efforts and accomplishments of our students, both in the classroom as well as those who participate in athletic sports of choice this winter season. We're going to bring up our groups individually this evening. Our first group of winter athletic students to be recognized are the student athletes from Oswego High School girls bowling team. This team has turned into one of the top contenders in Illinois after last year placing third in the IHSA state competition and this year playing fifth. Coach Okren, Coach Breedlove, and Coach Resner, at this time, we would like you to introduce your team. And students, as your name is called, please go forward across to the superintendent and board to receive recognition.
Okay, first up, we have our senior captain, Lainey Breedlove. Also being recognized but not with us tonight is Sunny Boker, a freshman. A junior who could also not be with us tonight, she's actually working at the Bowling Alley Pro Shop, Haley Jordan. We have junior Amber Lymanstall. A sophomore who could not be with us tonight is Rhiannon Reynolds. And next up, we have the Watson family. We have senior Caitlin Watson. Next up in the birth order is junior Maddie Watson. And freshman Sammy Watson. We also have a special gift for Dr. Sparlin. So I have a team book for you, Dr. Sparlin. I know you came out for sectionals and state, and you're actually pictured in our book, so I'm going to give you this as I walk by. So congratulations, girls.
Congratulations to our girls bowling team. We'll go ahead and let you all head out. And feel free to head out those center doors there, and we're gonna move right along. We have all sorts of fun tonight. Our next recognition goes to a student from Oswego East High School who is a member of the Oswego Co-op Boys Swimming and Diving Team. This athlete placed third at the IHSA State Boys Swim and Dive Champion in the 500 freestyle with a time of 4:30.29. At this time, we'll have our student athlete, Chase Meyer, a sophomore, come forward along with his coach, Coach Enslin, to be congratulated. You can go ahead and greet the board members there. Congratulations, Chase. Our next big group of students here are our student athletes from Oswego High School varsity co-ed cheerleading team. On their way to their first IHSA state championship competition, the OH cheer team captured the school's first ever sectional championship. Congratulations, cheer, for having finished 6th in state. We have Coach Hill, Coach Gaw, and Coach Henry. If you would come forward, you're going to introduce your team, and students, as your name is called, please go across the board and superintendent to be congratulated.
Junior Ava Brown. Senior Anaya Brunson. Senior Janaya Chapman. Junior Miranda Cook. Sophomore Sabrina Davis. Sophomore Briley Elizondo. Junior Jaylene Garcia. Sophomore William Hawkins. Senior Connor Kehoe. Senior Madeline Kohler. Senior Sarah Nolan. Sophomore Isabella Potasnik. Senior Sam Potasnik. Sophomore Natalie Smirowski. Freshman Gia Smith. Junior Ava Smith. Sophomore Autumn Streisik. Freshman Bree Thomas. Senior Elle Tweedy. Senior Abby Vilna. Senior Samantha Wade. And Junior Rachel Zwemke.
Coaches, go ahead and proceed through the line for congratulations, and then we will celebrate you one last time before you head out. Okay, you guys can head on out. Congratulations. Our final group of students for our student athletes are from Oswego East Wolves boys basketball team. This team finished the year with an impressive 29-6 record, a regional title, a sectional title, and a trip to the super sectional, where they gave an eventual Class 4A state champion Moline their biggest test of the tournament, losing by just 4 points. Sun Times High School sports editor Michael O'Brien's final Super 25 rankings for 2023 placed these Wolves in 5th place overall. Tonight we have, Coach Vasquez and Coach Moe are going to introduce their team, and then please proceed across to be congratulated.
Team manager, junior Simone Lockett. Senior Mason Blanco. Junior Austin Karachi. Senior Micah Gatewood. Senior manager Patrick Holt. Senior Tyler Jasek. Senior Gio Johnson. Senior Ryan Johnson. Senior Makai Lowry. Junior Noah Mason. Junior Braden Murphy. Sophomore Andrew Pullman. Sophomore Torin Ross. Senior Bryce Shoto. Junior Aiden Sims. Junior Javion Starwood. And Junior Andrew Wiggins.
And coaches, you can go ahead and proceed through the line to be congratulated. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, our final student recognition for this evening is our group of students from Oswego East High School who were named our National Merit Finalists. These individuals are chosen based on their abilities, accomplishments, and potential for success in their rigorous college studies. We have 3 students, 2 are joining us this evening. We have Arjun Ramesh is not here. Nicholas Rondon, please come forward. Nick, we're going to have you stay right there. And our very own board representative here, Anya Roy. Congratulations. Any of our OE admin would like to join us up front? We're going to do a photo with these students and our board and Dr. Sparlin. Stay there, we got some parents. Stay still. You can head up there, we'll share the photo with you, I promise. Go on up. All right, congratulations. All right, board, stay put. We're going to do a switch here. We need to go ahead and excuse any of our remaining parents that are here for those unless you'd like to stay. And we're going to welcome in our Pride Recognition awardees and their support crew. Here they come. Feel free, sit anywhere. You're welcome. There's chairs on the other side too. Feel free to sit wherever you'd like. Just one big party tonight. Okay, so we're going to move on to our Pride recognitions, our March Pride recognition. Tonight, the Board of Education acknowledges Pride winners for the month of March. Pride does stand for proudly recognizing individuals demonstrating excellence. The Board of Education implemented this program in the fall of 2015 to recognize, promote, and celebrate the many contributions made by teachers and employees across the district. Our Teachers of the Month are sponsored by Allied First Bank. This recognizes what our teachers do day in and day out for the continued growth and success of our students. Awardees, as your name is called, please come forward to be congratulated by the board and Dr. Sparlin. Congratulations to the following teachers for our March Teachers of the Month. First, Jen Augenbaugh, Special Education Teacher, Wolf's Crossing. Next, we have Angela Clintworth, Social Worker, Boulder Hill. Next, we have Patrick Molinari, our Physical Education Teacher at Oswego East. And Jill Snell, a Special Education Teacher at Wolf's Crossing. Special congratulations to our teachers. If we have any administrators that have joined us this evening, we'd ask you to come forward to join the awardees for a photo. Perfect. Congratulations. And our next awardee category this evening is our March Employees of the Month. This is co-sponsored by Chick-fil-A and Huntington Learning Center. This award is given in appreciation of employees who go above and beyond and are always willing to lend a hand. Awardees, please come forward as your name is called. Congratulations to our March Employees of the Month, Zinnia, I'm going to mess it up. Cineros, Assistant Secretary at Wolf's Crossing Elementary. And Jen Corbel, our Teacher Assistant at Grant Park. And again, if we have any administrators here this evening from these two schools, if you'd like to join up front for a photo. Thank you all. We just want to take one moment to thank our generous district sponsors, Allied First Bank, Chick-fil-A, Huntington Learning Center, and Culver's, who helped make to this program a success. And we invite everyone to consider nominating an individual for this monthly award. Thank you all.
Ms. Simulton, there's no public comment.
Okay. 6.1, Superintendent Report.
Well, good evening, Board. Tonight I start my comments on a very sad note. As you all know, over the past few days, we've been informed of two 308 students who have passed away. Shaquille Givens, who was a senior at Oswego East, passed away on Friday. Friends said they will miss his vibrancy, his laugh, and his contagious smile. Yesterday, many of us here attended a balloon release for Shaquille. At the release, friends and family came together in prayer to say I love you and to support one another. On Saturday, we were informed that Oswego East junior Jack Silva passed away unexpectedly. I'm told that Jack was a hard worker, he had the best sense of humor, and the biggest smile. The family has asked that any donations be made to Elam Christian Private Day School in his name, as this is where Jack attended school. We are deeply saddened by losing both Shaquille and Jack. Our hearts and support go out to their families and friends as they grieve the loss of these two young men who will be greatly missed by their friends, teachers, staff at Oswego East, and throughout our community. The tragedy and the loss of someone so young impacts us all, and healing requires both time and effort. Over the weekend, we worked to ensure we had additional help and support for students and staff as they process the loss. Together, we extend our heartfelt sympathy to Shaquille and Jack's families. Our thoughts are with them during this most difficult time. And at this time, I would ask for a moment of silence as we remember both Shaquille Givens and Jack Silva. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would echo those sentiments, Dr. Sparlin, and our heartfelt, our hearts go out to Shaquille and Jack's family. And we are thinking about you, and you are in our thoughts and our prayers. 6.2, student ambassador reports.
Good evening, everyone. I guess just to start off, echoing Dr. Sparlin's sentiments, I wish this wasn't the second time I had to do this, because I had to do this once last year as well. But I also wanted to send out our greatest sympathies that I know the entire student body feels to Shaquille and Jack's family and to those that knew him. And like I said, it's really difficult that we're having to do this a second time and to have to go through this loss. I can't even imagine what their families are going through, but nevertheless, I wanted to share that we are there, and we're always going to be here as a community for these families and for those who have to grieve this loss.
Changing around a little, I'm really sorry. So the SSAC met this afternoon, as well as a couple other times in the past few weeks, to finalize our survey about mental health. As we've talked about before, we really want to focus on the many different facets of mental health among SD308 student body, so that we can really get an idea of what we want to focus on this year. So our survey is split into 3 parts, including student-to-student interaction, student-teacher interaction, and building accessibility. These were all really important to us as each one shows a different part of mental health. We frequently discuss safe space because a lot of students don't understand what a safe space is, and they don't know how to access them in schools. So we also focused on creating environments where students could both successfully learn and talk about mental health, which we all decided was one of the most important things in order for us to succeed. So the survey we made will have multiple choice questions as well as free response questions. We thought that the free response questions were the way that we would get the most truthful responses, because if we have multiple choice questions for all of these, students are just going to pick what they think is the answer rather than really letting us know their honest opinions. And we want students to have the ability to freely respond. So we hope that when this survey goes out that we can understand a little bit more about what students are feeling like in the school building and how the interactions between students are felt by the students.
So Caitlin briefly mentioned that we will be administering this. We plan to do it after spring break. We were thinking about doing it before, but the week before spring break gets a little bit crowded, lots of tests, so we decided to push it back a little bit. Through the YPAR strategies for research that I know I talked about before, we should have enough material that the SSAC will be able to disaggregate, and upon that we'll be able to build some recommendation plans and provide possibly updates district-wide to students and parents about what the SSAC has been doing and the purpose of this survey. And I know that we administered this last year, and it was really helpful to get even more responses back from members of the community. Through the survey, we want to normalize conversations about mental health within the school environment, because a lot of the times when we learn about mental health, it's in the capacity that we need to learn it and apply it elsewhere. And while that ultimately is the most important goal that we have to take out of it, it's sometimes easy to forget that we spend, possibly up to 18 years of our lives within high school and elementary school and middle school. And while we're going through this educational process, we're in a highly people-dense environment. We're constantly collaborating and talking and learning, and we're growing here. So incorporating mental health awareness within the classroom, talking about how students interact with each other, how teachers and students interact with each other, and talking about how we build safe spaces within schools, not just outside safe spaces, but making a safe space within an active classroom. These are important conversations we need to have in order to ensure that students are learning better, and not making mental health awareness some sort of tagged on learning aspect. This is something that should be easily integrated, and hopefully through the survey we'll be able to understand how to better do that and in what ways we're lacking. I think that's everything from us. You have anything to add? All right, that's everything.
Thank you. And what about the board committee reports? Okay, are we doing, does anyone, is it next?
We have
Board 6.3 board committee reports. All right, so our board committee reports are included in board docs for any community member who would like to see them. I'm going to ask at this point if any of our board members have any questions regarding those committee reports, and if not,
I'll just ask one question. Yeah. I know the answer, but I'm just going to ask it. Sorry. Do we know who owns our TAWs yet?
Yeah, they've not been sold yet.
Thanks.
So they'll be sold in April 4th, and then we'll close on those on April 28th. So I'll have that information then.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
is that it? Any more questions?
I just wanted to give a huge shout out for the Policy and Legislative Committee, the undertaking and the heavy lift that our administrators and Ursula have taken on this year. We are literally going line by line through the policy manual, which is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages. So to both create a more updated and easier to navigate version of it, but also to make sure that we don't really leave any stone unturned. So I want to thank Dr. Kincaid and Mr. Bell and Ursula and Mr. Miller. They are this is above and beyond anything they thought they would be doing this year. It's a lot of work. It's been a lot of extra hours, extra meetings. So thank you to them. And what Dr. Kincaid is also doing is kind of on the side, creating an updated and new AP manual. So that is so important to have an administrative procedures manual for our staff to follow and understand what the expectations are. So I wanted to thank them for that. We are trying very hard to get a full draft into the hand of the board as quickly as possible. But the work is incredibly exhausting, and we are doing our quickest to get it there. We also have a huge update coming with issue 111, so we don't know what that is going to have in store for us. So that's another a lot of work. So I just wanted to thank them and appreciate also Mrs. Swanson, who has dedicated a lot of time to this. It has been a little overwhelming.
thank you to all of you who've worked on that. We really appreciate it. We know what a heavy lift it is, like Mrs. Johnson said. All right, any other comments? If not, we'll move on to 6.4, board member comments. Any comments from our board?
Yeah, I'll start. Tomorrow is going to be a unique opportunity. We're going to hear from students in our equity committee meeting from 5 to 6:30, and they're going to share their perspective on equity. And so that's over at the District Administrative Center. It's a public meeting, so anybody can attend. And then I also, just one other quick thing, I attended a student forum last week. After the forum, I was informed of a Fastathon event. Here's some more info. Please join Oswego and Oswego East High School students in a day of fasting during the month of Ramadan. Fastathon is a chance for the SD308 staff and students to become more culturally aware and experience something new. Attendees are encouraged to fast for one day from sunrise to sunset and break your fast with dinner at the OHS cafeteria. The event is on Wednesday, April 5th between 6 and 8 p.m. For staff, this will open up an opportunity to connect with your Muslim students and understand more about Islam. This event is hosted to spread awareness of the holiday to non-Muslims. Are you up for the challenge? RSVP as soon as possible. For RSVP and further information, please reach out to Dr. Waller via email at jwaller@sd308.org. And she told me to.
You said April 6th?
April 5th.
April 5th.
Yeah. I think it's a
Wednesday.
$5 dinner, but it's be a unique opportunity. So, and it's for staff and parents, or staff and students.
Thank you.
And that's all I had.
Okay, thanks.
March brings Kashmir Pulaski, and Kashmir Pulaski brings a day off for Mr. Ploger, but not a day off in Oswego. So that means I was busy making trips to schools. So first of all, thank you to our building administrators for allowing me in. I'll try to be quick, but I could sit here and talk for a long, long time about everything that I saw, but I won't, I promise everybody. I visited Plank. I had long conversations with staff members there. Thank you to them for those candid, authentic conversations. I felt better afterwards, but I don't know if they did necessarily, but we had a lot of conversations, social studies teacher to social studies teachers, and it was, they were good conversations. Went to Thompson, lots of positive conversations there as well. There's a lot of buzz over the district festival. I know there's some celebrating over there when it comes to the arts as well, and they do great work there. Southbury is very impressed with how much is going on in that school. I'm always impressed when I go there, to say the least, but a lot of things going on. Went to Eastview. Wow. I helped move some equipment. They put me to work, which was pretty cool. I walked in and I started moving some equipment for them. I took a mindful lap and listened to a student during that lap. They had lots of questions for me, to say the least, and learned a great deal about trains and maple water, not maple syrup, maple water. There's a difference. But I did leave there very concerned about staffing shortages and how that's going to impact Eastview Academy moving forward. And I always say that it's our most vulnerable students that concern me at first. And you can see and hear that if you go there, for sure, when you listen to staff and when you listen to our administration over there. I left there, and that was on my mind for sure. Murphy was another great visit, and I sensed the theme. If you notice, I went to Murphy, I went to Thompson, I went to Plank. And every time we bring up talking about our students' needs, and every time I bring up the concept of moving to a middle school model, everyone's eyes light up with enthusiasm. And it's something that I think we need to have serious conversations about here. I know those conversations have come up in the past. Unfortunately, if we're being honest, one of the issues and obstacles that we've had is that's going to take resources at some point. But we are moving into a place, we've been talking about this a great deal, and we have lots of staff that are doing great work at our junior high level. But if we are going to really address some of what we're seeing on the social emotional level, I cannot stress this enough that moving to a middle school model would definitely help us, and it would have a residual effect that would also help the high school as well. And I'm telling you that when it is brought up, you will see staff members' eyes light up. Please, please, they are asking. But that's going to take, it's going to take resources. It's going to take reconfiguring, redoing things. I think we have very talented people here who can figure some of this out. It might not happen I'm going to tell you it won't happen overnight. There's no way it'll happen overnight. But I think it's something we need to look at, especially knowing everything that we're dealing with. So great visits, great things going on. Again, very appreciative that people let me in.
I just, again, wanted to congratulate Anya. I'm so incredibly proud of her, and Robert as well. And it's just such a fantastic accomplishment, to be honest with you. Just two things I wanted to bring up that I think are very important. On the 22nd, which is Wednesday from 6 to 7:30, is our next community chat, and it's building strong relationships with your children. It's from 6 to 7:30. It is virtual. You can stay in your pajamas and your coffee, but it's great to get together with other parents and talk about maybe what's on your mind and building relationships, regarding building strong relationships with your children. The other event that I'd really like to point out is the College and Trade Expo that is taking place at Oswego High School on Saturday, this coming Saturday, March 23rd from 5 to 7. I know a lot of times we talk about college as the path, but there are so many other opportunities that the district provides and that are out there besides college. And this will allow students and family members the opportunity to learn about career and training options that do not require a four-year degree. This expo will figure local college programs, vocational training programs, union construction apprenticeships, and local businesses offering employment and training options. I think this is really important and something that all students that maybe don't want to use the traditional four-year college path could take advantage of. And there is never any shortage of union construction jobs and apprenticeships. They are so needed, as my husband's in the commercial construction industry, and they are always looking for those positions. So I encourage any families to take advantage of that expo this weekend. That's all I have.
How about you? No? Okay, so I would like to share some information with our community regarding the superintendent search. And so all of our board members today received an update on our superintendent search. And the information that I'll share with you now will also be available on our website, on our superintendent search page. And so at this point in the process, there will be 3 ways in which our community, our district community can get involved in the superintendent search process. One is focus groups, the second is open forums, and the third is a community survey. So what has happened thus far is we have invited, we have reached out to anywhere from 30 to 40 community district-wide groups, and we have asked their lead representative to send a representative to one of 9 focus groups. So of those 9 focus groups, it represents about 30 to 40 of our parents, our students, our community members within our building, within our buildings and within our community, and it represents 500 plus people. And so those 9 focus groups are going to take place on April 11th, and we have a deadline of this Wednesday in terms of those lead representatives getting back to us with their individuals who will be participating. And so you'll see on our website on April 11th that it will be by invitation, and then what we will have then are 2 open forums on April 12th. 4:30 and 6:30. One will be a staff forum, and one will be a parent and community forum. So anyone who who did not participate in those 9 focus groups have many opportunities to also voice their thoughts within these 2 open forums on April 12th. And then we also have a community forum which will take place from April 10th through the 17th. It's a virtual process, so you can use your phone or any of your electronic devices that you prefer to complete a survey. We will also take this opportunity to designate a certain amount of time within the classroom for our high school students and their staffs and their teachers to also take the survey, as well as the staff. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities for input, and all this information can be found on our website starting when, Teresa? Will that be tomorrow? Yeah. So there we go. Thank you.
I think did you also share that we have been receiving candidates for this?
So, yes, so as of right now, we have 17 applicants, and 6 of those applicants are out of state. And we're continuing to receive applications, and our search firm indicates that we are in a very good position at this point, and they don't see it stopping even after we get the profile that you all will have input into. We'll probably be receiving even more applications. No, that was.
Thank you.
So.
Mrs. Hamilton.
Okay. Yes. Anything else you guys want to add to that? Okay,
No.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to 7.1, the consent. Is that me?
I'm like super far away. Unless it's me.
I think it's me. 7.1, consent agenda. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I wonder if it's my notebook. I make a motion to approve all items under consent, including minutes from the Board of Education meeting on February 27th, 2023, open and closed session. Minutes from the Board of Education public forum on March 6th, 2023, to acknowledge the FOIA requests received by the district, to approve the interfund transfers, and to approve the Illinois High School Association membership renewal for the 2023-2024 year for Oswego and Oswego East High School.
Second.
I have a point of clarification for the FOIAs. When I was going through those, I saw that some things were, is this the right time, I guess, to ask the question? Yeah, so there were certain things that were redacted on some at the top. It was not redacted further down. So is that something that we should wait until it was properly redacted before we release to the public?
I'd have to take a look at which ones are you referring to?
Well, I don't think we need to call
Yeah, I
any
won't
more
call it.
attention to that,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
can we please talk about the redacting process, who does that, and what that process looks like, so there's a little bit more fidelity in it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine.
I
I'm
didn't know
just,
you wanted to bring this up too.
No, I'm just trying to figure out now how to proceed with this one, given that,
They are, we do send those to our attorneys, so we do have our attorneys review for redaction. So we have a staff member who takes the FOIA requests, they gather the information, and they take an initial run and redact based on the rules that we have for redaction.
yeah, I'm not questioning the rules at all.
Yeah. But it
what I
sounds
was-
like there's some inconsistencies between one email and another one.
Yes, as I'm going down them,
Yeah.
I saw, so think of a chain email. So part of the chain email was redacted, because I don't know for what reason or why. but the chain email further down, that information within that same chain was not
Okay.
redacted. And so I just want to make sure that if it was proper cause to redact it up top, I don't want it to be released further down in the email. So I'm calling the question to that so that we can remove it, so that I don't approve that portion of it until we get it properly redacted, and then we can
Yeah.
release it.
Especially when it comes to students, and this has happened more than once this year, where, again, it is redacted at the top and not through the bottom. So that needs to have not just legal review, but some sort of internal review as well before it goes out.
Yeah, I would say this is the appropriate time to hold those out then, and let's review that. If there's personal identifiable information, people's home phone numbers or
Yes.
student information, then that definitely should not be made public. So,
But we need to, so are you gonna hold all of it out?
So I
for
just
now?
need to make a motion
Yes.
to.
Yes.
yeah, I would say let's have a final review on those then before that's released.
I would like to make a motion to amend, to remove 7.2 from the consent agenda,
Yes.
to review it to be approved at a later date.
Where's Marie? Gotcha.
I made a motion.
Second.
Second. Sorry.
That's all right.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Just a minute. Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
I abstain.
Mrs. Johnson?
Abstain.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Motion passes? 3-2.
3-0.
Well, 3.
3-0.
3-0 to
3-0.
All right, item 8.1 is in regards to financial statements. Does the board have any questions?
Wait, don't we have to vote on the rest of it?
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We still have to,
We got to vote on the rest of them.
yes.
That was just to remove 7.2. Second,
Can
you have to make
a
your motion.
now without 7.2? Sorry.
As amended.
Or you can read it and not read 7.2.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. I make a motion to approve all items under consent, including minutes from the Board of Education meeting on February 27th, 2023, open and closed session, minutes from the Board of Education Public Forum on March 6th, 2023, to approve the interfund transfers and to approve the Illinois High School Association membership renewal for 2024 for Oswego High School and Oswego East High School.
Second.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, item 8.1 is in regards to financial statements. Does the board have any questions on what has been provided this evening?
The action items and information items that are in the in board docs, this particular meeting are kind of one of the reasons that I've been asking for a variance report, and also why we have been trying to put together a list of contracts that could and could not be renewed. One of the reasons is I feel like when we don't review vendors, we often have to kind of deal with the complacency that comes with a long-term contract. And I'm just, I've talked to a lot of community members, a lot of students over the years about the food program, and we continue to renew it. And I don't know that there's anything out there, but we do have to address the fact that there are some quality issues with school lunch. And I just would like to understand, if we continue to renew, what are the opportunities for us to go to a vendor and say, we continue to have the same type of issues, the quality issues and
Are
so
we
on.
on 8.1 or 8.7?
Am I in a totally wrong place?
Yeah, that's 8.7, so.
8.7.
Can you remember all that for 8.7?
Yeah,
We
I got
can, we
something
can.
to bring up for
Thank
8.7
you.
also. We're on 8.1.
very
That's
long
okay, you're good.
day. Can
I
you
was
tell?
confused.
Financial statement.
My apologies.
That's quite all right. Any other questions regarding 8.1?
No question.
All right. Item 8.2 is in regards to Harvey and Wolf's Crossing intersection contribution. Dr. Pesky?
All right, good evening. Today, I brought with us, do we need to turn it on? It is. All right. So today for 8.2, we're discussing the intersection contribution at Harvey and Wolf's Crossing. Today I brought Stu Witt, our attorney from Witt Law. He was actually at the table when the annexation agreement was drafted in 2003, and has some background information that I think would be pertinent for the board as well. So to begin, on February 21st, the Village of Oswego sent Dr. Sparlin a letter seeking financial contributions in the amount of $161,932,000. And if you look at the memo that was sent to us, the first part of the memo from the village addresses the 2003 annexation agreement, where it talks about building or adding a traffic signal to the intersections of Harvey and Wolf's Crossing. And the next paragraph of that letter then talks about the village's decision to put a roundabout in that area. They reference a cost. On January 20th of 2023, they opened bids for that at about an $8.5 million cost. And then they talk about the annexation agreement again that we signed in 2003. So at that time, the annexation agreement, the district agreed to contributing 25% of a traffic signal, which is how they're getting the $161,932,000. The last part of their memo talks about there is a portion of that annexation agreement which talks about the district being able to recapture a portion of that contribution from the property owners in the area. And then it says that after a payment is agreed upon by the village and the Board of Education, that the village would draft a recapture agreement. And then the letter just says, talks about the traffic in that area. So based on that, we had that sent, since Witt Law was involved with drafting that annexation agreement, we figured we would have him take a look at that memo and give answer any questions that the board might have as we look at moving forward with this, or to clarify anything that we might have as well. In the letter, a contribution could be cash, or it could also be through impact fees, is what the village recommended as well. So there's multiple ways for us to do that. So at this time, I'd like to open up for discussion or any questions that the board might have.
I have two questions. Question one is, and if you don't know this, that's fine, because I know I didn't give you this ahead, so sorry, but as you're talking, I thought of this. Question one is, there's no chance for them to come back and try and capture more later. That's question one. And question two, I know tomorrow they're talking about another development along Wolf, which there are impact fees that are earmarked coming towards us. So in theory, what are the probabilities of this just being applied to those impact fees that were slated to come in? Does that make sense, what I'm asking, both questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to clarify, and then I'll let Stu answer too, but just to clarify, the annexation agreement in 2003 is specifically about the intersection at Wolf's Crossing and Harvey Road. So the money in 2003, we signed a 20-year agreement to say that if there was a traffic signal put there, that the district would contribute to that cost. So it's just a few months away from that agreement from expiring, and that's when we got this letter from the village asking about that contribution. Now, as far as them coming back for more later, there are no other agreements that say with other developments, we would be contributing to any development in that area or taking this money and putting these dollars towards crediting other developments.
I guess what I mean is you had said something about there was more than one way to pay. And I guess what I'm saying is, so let's say, I don't know the exact figure, but let's say the impact fees from this new development were 1.2 million. I don't know what it is, but let's say that's what the impact fees were. Is there a way for them to just say, fine, here's 1.05, and instead of the 1.2, we'll take the rest off, and that is your 160,000. Does that make sense?
You've got a number of different developments out here that have got impact fees, and you're
Right.
going to continue to have additional developments with impact fees. So what you really want to be careful to do, to stay within the spirit of the agreement, is to limit your exposure in terms of credits against impact fees or cash to 25% of the traffic signal, which they've quantified in a recent bid of $161,932.
Right.
So once you satisfy that, either through cash that you would give to them, or through capital facilities development impact fees, which I would suggest would come from a specific development. Okay.
Which is why I talked about the one along Wolf.
Okay, yeah, which is, which is the way that I would handle it. I would tie it specifically to a development so that they get their credits there. The developer is going to pay the impact fees to the village. The village is not going to pay them to you if you choose, if the parties negotiate that avenue. Does that make sense?
I think so. In other words, what I'm saying is take the 160, whatever it is, out of impact fees that were going to come out of a development that's coming from
A specific.
something along Wolf. Because to me that makes sense, because that's Wolf.
Right.
So it wouldn't be something along Orchard, because that doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, sure.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. I don't see how Orchard, I mean, granted, you can make an argument, but I really don't see how Orchard and Wolf are related.
This whole traffic signalization thing that started in 2003, 2004, all dealt with the unique circumstances that occurred along Wolf's Crossing Road in 2003 with that automobile accident. There was a huge push at that time to improve Wolf's Crossing Road from Route 71 all the way to Route 30 with a 4-lane cross-section. And that was just at the time that we were negotiating the annexation and development of this Oswego East school site. So the compromise was, as the need arises, we'll contribute our share, and that's what basically happened here.
Mr. Witt, are you stating that 20 years ago in 2003 they were talking about 4-lane roads of Wolf Crossing being a 4-lane road from 71 to 30? Okay. Okay.
That's my memory.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good memory. I seem to recall that too.
Mr. Witt, is your memory functional? If it is, then I trust that memory. I remember that also, and I think we have documentation of that.
That was, it was an interesting time.
I'm sure.
So back here we still are, as I sat in traffic last week for 43 minutes on Wolf's Crossing, 20 years later. I just have one question. Why is traffic signalization versus a roundabout, how is that
It might be me.
as subjective as I feel like we are having this discussion about? To me, a traffic signal is a traffic signal, a roundabout is a roundabout. I'm just really struggling with why there is so much ambiguity regarding that.
Because there's not a clear-cut definition of whether a roundabout constitutes traffic signalization.
But if you look at the definition of a traffic signal and you look at the definition of a roundabout, they are not the same thing.
Exactly, they're not the same thing. So to live to the letter of the annexation agreement, the village will put a traffic signal at Wolf's Crossing and Harvey Road. That's not necessarily the best traffic control device given we never used to have, we used to have roundabouts years ago. And then we got rid of them.
And I'm
all.
not debating that, neither here nor there for me right now regarding this. We made an agreement to pay for whatever percentage for a traffic signal. Whatever the village has to do in their planning and safety is whatever the village has to do for their planning and safety. I realize that it impacts our families and our students. I'm just trying to understand with this document what our actual liability is, period.
Well, and that's kind of where, and one of the reasons why I wanted Whitlaw to take a look at this memo, because I questioned that too, and it was just, what is our obligation? It's 25% that we had if a traffic signal was in there. And one of the things I'd like to ask the board to do is actually go to the village and find out a little bit more about the financial plan. What is the village investing? What types of grants are going in? That 25% represents what percentage of the total investment in that project?
Right.
That's what I was
And I
asking.
didn't feel like in that document there was all of that laid out yet for us to understand. And to Jared's point, what else is coming? Like I don't know why I'm just trying to understand why we're having the discussion, to be honest with you. You know, traffic signal's a traffic signal, so I agree,
Well,
Dr. Patsky.
and that's why in the letter, we had them clarify, that's why in the letter, the first paragraph in the village's letter, they kind of misstate what it really says in the annexation agreement. They say intersection improvement, when really it's not an intersection improvement.
Right.
It was traffic signalization. So
That's
there was
my
some
point.
liberty with the words there, and we just wanted to make that clear to the board that we did agree, but in the spirit of that letter, we realize that with the school here and the intersection there, that a lot of traffic, students coming to school, dropping off, picking up, there is a lot of activity there, just as there is all along Wolf's Crossing. So I guess the question is, what do we deem as a fair value to contribute towards that traffic signal?
Well, and the other
or that
reality is,
traffic mitigation?
right, we have a budget, a very finite budget. We have a list of things that we have to address that extend way beyond that budget. And so it is our fiduciary responsibility as a board to make sure that whatever money is going out is financially prudent for us. So this is incredibly important because this is in lieu of another project that we could be taking advantage of. Again, I'm not here to debate safety because we want to put the safety. I, as a taxpayer of this community, I want it to be a safe. That's not what I'm debating or having a discussion about.
I understand your point, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I will say this, right? At the end of the day, the agreement was made in 2003, and I think that whether we agree or disagree with that agreement is irrelevant. We are the inheritors of that agreement, and we are the inheritors of that board. And so I think we have to honor that, and we have to also be cognizant of the following, right? And that is that at the end of the day, we have no power over impact fees that are set. Yep. And so I have no problem with saying, fine, here was the agreement that I think, agree or disagree, I think this is what the board at that time envisioned that they were saying a future board was going to have to pay. And I think that's the piece that we have to honor, is what was the intention of that board. The intention of that board was they saw a traffic light going up and they said the school district will contribute 25%. That board did not envision a roundabout. That's fine. If the village wants to change and go with a roundabout, that's on them and that's their decision. I think for us, though, we have to honor what the intention of that board was back in 2003. And I think we have to do this in good faith, knowing that there is another board, that is another taxing body that, whether we like it or not, right, controls the impact fees that affect us. And so I think we have to act in good faith here. And yes, I understand our budget is tight, but I think that's the reality of the whole situation, and that's the big picture. And I think as clean as we make this, is also a good gesture to the trustees and people over at the Oswego Village Board.
I have a question. The recapture fees, so we could possibly recapture this if some of the properties get rezoned. So, I mean, this might end up costing us zero over the long term, so.
So the way traffic lights work, pretty straightforward. If you have a traffic light at an intersection, a quarter cost goes to the northwest, quarter to the northeast, quarter to the southeast, quarter to the southwest. Pretty straightforward. In this particular instance, there's 3 or 4 parcels down there on the corner. I haven't been past there in the daylight in the last couple of years, but there are 3 or 4 parcels down there that are not annexed to the village and that have not been repurposed to a different use. That's where you would get the recapture from if in fact they annex their property to the village and they would be subject to the recapture. Today, you would pay for all of the corner, the northwest corner. You would recapture some of that based upon their impact on the intersection at that time. Clearly, your traffic pattern or your traffic count on a daily basis would contribute the majority of the financing for the northwest corner.
So is that?
Those will be a much smaller one. You won't recover 100% because you're causing a lot of traffic at that intersection.
Absolutely. So is the 25% not to exceed the 160 based on the price of the traffic signal and not the roundabout?
What they're wanting you to contribute is the cost, is 25% of the traffic signalization, which they've represented as the $161,932. That's not been quantified. That's not been verified. They say that they've got a quote on a project nearby. Show us the quote. We can figure it out and negotiate whatever discrepancy we see there. But that would be the limit of your contribution. The roundabout, we were talking about the cost of the roundabout at the time that we conveyed the acreage down here to them. And the cost of the roundabout was going to be upwards of $1 million, if I recall.
That is correct.
It was a big ticket item, including that stormwater management down.
But I just want to make sure that we memorialize in the agreement what you just stated so that we understand what our responsibility is once we agree that it won't exceed that amount. That's the main thing that I'm concerned about.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Absolutely.
So Mr. Witt has made a recommendation to the board in the memo that has been provided. Is that where we want to go, giving direction to Mr. Witt to be directed to provide an initial response to the village regarding the school district's position on this matter? And to have an opportunity to discuss the statement regarding the option to make the requested payment through impact fees and request a draft recapture agreement provided so that it can be finalized before the payment is made?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Mr. Stu, thank you so much for being here. You've got some direction from the Board of Education, and we look forward to having you back or having the agreement back for action at a later point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You as well.
Thank you.
All right, item 8.3 is in regards to information on custodial supply bid. Dr. Petsky and Mr. Queen.
All right. So I'll just stay up here. I'll turn this over to Bill, and I know he's got a little presentation here as well on custodial supplies, and he and I have been talking about these bids that are going out and some options that we might want to pursue, and Bill's going to share that with us today.
Good evening, President Simonton, Dr. Sparlin, Board of Education. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
All right, what you're looking at here is our custodial maintenance supplies, and it's up for bid. This runs in a 2-year cycle, and we are currently due to put this out for bid. We run this through our typical RFP process, and what you're seeing there is an itemized list of everything that we put out to bid during the last process that we followed through with. So typically when this happens, what we do is we do an advertisement for bid, and that goes out 10 days before the pre-bid. With the pre-bid, we'll call them back in and we'll cover the list of products going out to bid. Then we'll bring them all back in again and we'll do a bid opening where we go over the bids out loud with the vendors and everything that was priced and who was the low bid during that process. We discovered that apparent low bidder, then we come to you guys and we talk about who was the low bid and who we would like to go with. It's a pretty long and extensive process that this program could help us with if we dive into it a little bit more once we get into this. You want to click it again? So benefits of partnering with a co-op. Cooperative purchasing is conducted by or on behalf of one or more government units for use by other government units. So if you see some of the titles in there where we could benefit and where we move through and follow through with how this works for us. On a process can be trusted and to satisfy your bid requirements. We are a government agency that works like you, achievement and excellence in procurement recipients. Buying power of 50,000 participant agencies, contracts or other ceiling-based, not to exceed or pricing or valuing documents. So we're making sure everybody's staying in order and doing what they need to do in order to be a fair competitive bidding process. More than 400 qualifying suppliers holding competitive award contracts, full suite options of complete solutions, easy no-cost participation for the public agencies. We would like the opportunity to explore the use of the cooperative as an alternative to the competitive bidding process in smaller projects. Of these, the contracts are already vetted and approved by the state of Illinois. We have an existing partnership with Sourcewell Competitive, various suppliers and services like Tyler Technologies, Kubota, Granger, to name a few. This is new for me and my team as we are scheduled to meet with Sourcewell and coordinate on 3/23 of this week just to get a little bit more of a baseline background for how they can help us utilize this process.
I think just to summarize a little bit, like I've had some involvement with cooperatives in the past, and basically the way they work is school districts all over the state of Illinois, all over the nation, are going through that process of turning in RFPs, getting competitive bids, and then what the co-ops are doing is they've got access to those RFPs, and the company are taking that information, and rather than going through the bid process and the time it takes to do that, we can go through the co-op and we can kind of tie on to an existing RFP that was put out for many of the similar items that you saw on that list there. So it's an efficient way to do it. It's a cost savings way to do it. And if we're not happy with the co-ops and what they're offering, then we can, by all means, we can go out to bid as well. So,
is there any liability or obligation for us or even cost for us to be a part of the cooperative?
That's what they do. Co-ops. They do public, they do nonprofit, and they do private sector competitive bidding. And so public agencies like schools and whatnot, we don't have any financial obligation to participate.
Great.
Does the board have any other questions regarding 8.3?
I do.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say if there's no risk, then.
And I think when we say no risk, the one thing that Bill and I will take a look at is when we've gone out for bid on these projects, we'll take a look at the amount of time we put in, how much those bids came back for those supplies and materials, and we'll compare like the last 5 bids and the process we went through and compare that to what is being offered through the co-op. And we think we're going to see that there's really not a cost savings, but we'll come back to the board with that information.
So my question's a little bit different. We do have some cooperative purchasing with our own local municipalities already. What will this change about those cooperative agreements and that cooperative purchasing?
And I think Lori, what you're talking about is the shared services.
Yep.
Is that correct? Yeah. So we don't have shared services for these types of custodial supplies. That's for larger items, like if they want to use our scissor lift, if we want to use the salt storage and things of that nature. This is really things that we use, kind of consumables. You'll see on that list was like chemicals, bleaches, waxes, scrubbers, things of that nature.
So I'm just going to reiterate to be really abundantly clear, this doesn't have any impact on our shared services currently with our local municipalities and wouldn't negatively impact them in any way, shape, or form.
You're correct. No.
And there's no additional cost to us to participate in this.
No.
Thank you.
And we can leave at any time.
Yes.
My only other question was, they're out of Minnesota, correct?
Sourcewell, yes, I believe so.
There's no issues with, like sourcing here or getting product here, or, okay. And then the follow-up question to that is, where do they stand from a sustainability lens, like with regards to, I mean, obviously it's chemicals, so chemicals are not exactly sustainable, but what is their philosophy around sustainability around, yeah?
You know, the co-ops, it's not really what it is we ask for the chemicals. So if we want environmentally green chemicals, then we would ask for those chemicals, and then we would see if there was another district that bid out for those chemicals.
Okay.
And then the co-op would allow us to tag on to that RFP. So it's really not, we're not using their chemicals. They just help us bypass that process.
No, and I appreciate that, but it's kind of like, you know, when you're sourcing a company, like, do they have DEI? Do they have, like, the lenses? I just wanted to know, well,
Yeah.
with our board policies and with what we are interested in doing here in the district, can we get what we need? So,
Yes.
yeah.
And you know, right now, Bill, he kind of put up their Sourcewell, but we also have, there's another co-op, Omnia, there's another co-op, Buy Board. It depends on what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And there's also an organization that I'm connecting up with. They're called Compare Co-ops. It's like a brokerage for multiple co-ops. So if I'm looking for a specific product, they're going to go to all of the co-ops
Oh,
that they're
nice.
members of and say, well, hey, here's 4 different ones from these different co-ops that that represent the products or what that you're looking for. So Compare
That's great to hear.
Co-ops is like a brokerage firm for multiple.
Like a clearinghouse type of, yeah.
So are we, that you just brought up the question, so are we using Sourcewell, or are we going to use what you just described?
We do. In other settings, we use, matter of fact, I believe it was Sourcewell when I got the driver's ed cars. They ended up having a contract with Enterprise, and so we got our driver's ed cars through there. We get other products through there. We also use Omnia to get other products. So we're currently using them now, but we haven't used them at this scale that Bill's talking about. So I appreciate his initiative in wanting to take a look at what the co-ops can do for us and look at costing it out and see, okay, it does save some time and it's legal, and it satisfies that need to go to low bid, but is it also beneficial to the district? If it's not beneficial, then we will go out to bid, and we'll put the time, energy, and effort into that.
This isn't a question, this is just a comment. So this is something that we've talked about for a long time, so I appreciate taking the initiative to make that effort. You know, it's the purchase goods and stuff like that. We know that there's not huge amounts there, but for finding whatever you can. So
Yes, thank you.
appreciate that. So.
Thank you.
Very good. Item 8.4 is in regards to the OE and OHS tennis court bids.
All right, on February 23rd, bids were publicly opened and read aloud for Oswego High School and Oswego East tennis court projects. 2 contractors chose to submit bids for this project. A low base bid was submitted by Abbey Paving from Illinois in the amount of $1,641,775,000. The second lowest bid was submitted by Schroeder Asphalt Services from Huntley, Illinois, in the amount of $1,780,000. Our recommendation is to award the base bid for OHS tennis courts to Abbey Paving in the amount of $1,641,775. So we're sharing with you some of the pictures of the current state of OHS tennis courts right now as they sit. We currently have 12 courts that are unplayable, or 6 courts that are unplayable and 6 courts that are playable. What you're looking at is cracks, deterioration, a lot of foundation stress, and years and years and years of just us patching, striping, and doing the best we can. It's important to understand we've had these up for a couple different times. It just never had the money to really fix these tennis courts in both areas.
We've definitely heard from parents on this.
This is OEHS.
So it's nice
So-
to know. Is it holding us back from having athletic events here, and
It-
will we
it
be
is.
able to return?
It is. So we're slowly getting to that area. OHS is the worst case scenario right now.
Okay.
Like that is in dire need of some repairs to get the job done. And honestly, the safety and liability is a major concern for us right now at OHS.
I was going to add, Bill, it's hard to even have a dual meet with 12. I mean, we have 12. We have a beautiful bank of 12. There are only 6 courts are usable. Not only is it not usable for the competition piece of the boys and girls tennis team, but also the kinetic wellness. That's a teaching station for our physical education classes. And then it also limits the amount of community use that can, where we can utilize these tennis courts, because right now only half of them you can play, and even the half that you can play on, you can see what they look like.
Yeah.
And I think if I could real quick, and I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to this question, but I'll ask anyways. Is it fair, I've had this given to me, is it fair to make the assessment of, tragically, I hate to say it, but embarrassing at this point?
It's very embarrassing. Coming from the high school, I did my best for 5 years over there to try to make them look the best. I mean, from power washing to anything we could do out there, we made every attempt just to try to save pride with that. So yes, 100%.
And not just that, but Jared, I would say, first impressions make a big difference. And I think that, if I were a student, came to the high school and considered all my different athletic choices, I'd look at this and be like, oh, tennis, or, what other opportunities do I have? So I think that if we do fix these up, I think, number one, I think safety, liability. Number two, I think that we could see some more developments with renting them out for people who'd want to use the facilities, and just students on the athletic teams. They would want to participate in something and be proud of the courts that they're playing on.
Well, but really, in a more practical way, I guess you could tangentially make the argument that it's about pride and first impressions and team size. But the reality is, we've had this on our agenda as one of the things ever since we were doing budget cuts, and on the one hand, and in the same meeting, talking about this. And the pictures don't look any different, really. Maybe a little worse, obviously, but now we've got 2 schools. It's only gotten more expensive, and it's only going to continue to get more expensive. My only question is, I know, Dr. Sparlin, at one point we'd been looking at the possibility of a USTA grant. Has that been able to be captured for this, or were we unsuccessful?
Dr. Pesky, where are we at? I asked you to look into that the other day.
So what I'm going to need to do is get with Mr. Darren Howard, who had brought that to our attention before, and ask him if that grant is still available. So I know there was some time before that discussion, and it's happened now.
He's sitting over there.
Mr. Howard, do you have any information at this point in time? If the answer is no, then I don't want to put you on the spot. If the answer is no, the answer is no. But as Mrs. Doyle said, when we had previously looked at this during budget cuts, we had been in conversation with USTA, and I believe it was like about a $100,000 grant for the construction of new courts.
Mm-hmm. Can we apply for that even if we, and I'm sorry, Mr. Howard, for asking you on the spot, like you're just quietly sitting in the back, hanging out. But can we approve a bid and get started on it and still apply for the grant? We don't need to apply for the grant before we get started, do we?
There are stipulations in the grant we'll have to take a look at.
But can I also say that this is only for the paving, correct?
Well, that's my question.
Because there's still nets that need to be upgraded, and landscaping, and
yes and no. And it's been 2019 that I last looked at this grant, so that was right before COVID. but I believe it was for the courts themselves. I don't know, I don't even want to speculate, but if we can try to accomplish that and it doesn't really negatively impact our timeline, I mean, it's $100,000 potentially. That's not nothing.
My question goes, excuse me, beyond, because when I'm looking at the pictures on page 3, particularly like the longest one, that large crack that goes across the chain and many of the other cracks, they don't look like wear and tear. So my concern is, are we surveying the land that the foundation that the tennis courts that would sit on? Because I would hate to put how much do we say, $1.6 million on it
To do this again.
for it to the land to unsettle, and then we run into this issue again. So I just want to make sure that we are doing the due diligence to the root cause, because this is, to me, this is not wear and tear. This looks deeper than that.
Correct. So why I brought in Mr. Todd Roberts from AmeriCorp. He is the engineer and architect on the project for us. He can answer any of those questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, so for this project, we did some extensive geotechnical investigation work to find out why the tennis courts are falling apart, basically. And what we're doing with this project and why it's a little bit more expensive is that we're completely rebuilding it. We're removing the asphalt, we're taking out the stone, and starting at the bottom and building it back up with a better quality base so that it won't happen like this in the future.
Okay, that helps me.
Under drains, I mean, there's a whole lot of things we're including with that geogrid.
With that said, I know we live in the Midwest, and living in the Midwest is very difficult on asphalt tennis courts. Is there, with what you just said, with the total rebuild, what kind of is there any kind of guarantee in regards to that? I just asked a question.
Yeah, there's no guarantee, but with the structure that's been designed for this, it's definitely going to have a better chance of surviving a lot longer than this court did.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
problem with the way it was built originally is the under drain system. They basically created a bathtub and didn't allow the water that was in the soil to get out. And so with the new design, we've got a great under drain system in there to take it away. So, moisture always in the soil below the asphalt, it unstabilizes it, right? So we'll get that moisture out and then put in a good stone base and go from there.
Thank you.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Also, that's probably where the water drains too. So it's kind of like weather wear and tear.
Weather, not usage.
So is this the,
Mr. Gatewood, the wear and tear you're going to see is in that fourth one at the bottom there at the bottom. That's your wear and tear. And there's no grit. You ever been on a tennis court and you feel that gritty?
Yeah.
That your feet can grip on? That's all gone.
Yeah, I'm good with that because you can take that off. But if you go to page number, even there, if you look at right around there, it looks like the foundation of the footing is there, but the rest of it is sinking.
Yep.
And so that's what caused me to say, wait a minute, this is not normal.
Or it's heaving up.
And it's not. So these were built a while ago where we
That's what my
probably
fence
got
posts
taken
do.
advantage of by the contractor.
geez, is this the best technology, whatever we're doing, is this the best way to go? You know how when you talk about football fields, there's all these,
Yeah, it's a very good technology they're employing it's basically, they call it geogrid that they're putting down, and the stone goes into the grid and it all interlocks together to help keep things from moving. And particularly like with those supports you're seeing for the tennis posts. They've changed how those are built. That was just a cylinder of concrete before. Now they've changed the shape of them so that it won't push up. What's really happening is frost is pushing those up. And they've changed the shape of what those footings look like to help keep them from being pushed up in the future.
Got it.
So what do we, from a maintenance perspective moving forward, and once this were to be done, what are we looking at? How long will this remain usable and practical?
Courts are resurfaced typically every how many years?
10 years.
That's what I thought.
resurfaced as in like an asphalt driveway where my husband says, hey, it's time to resurface? Is that what resurfacing means, or what does it mean?
You're thinking of seal coating.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
That's
that's not it.
But that may be annual.
More than that, some of these cracks, where
They
you
have
see
to
some of
grind
the
it up.
coloration in there, they actually put a crack seal material over the top of that, so they'll grind it down, get a good crack seal on there. And then the color coat goes on top of that. And that's that gritty feel that Bill was talking about. So you may have to color coat more often than 10 years, but getting down to having to do crack repair and whatnot, that's probably 10.
Got it.
Very good. Very informative. We appreciate that. Board, are you have any other questions regarding this information item?
When would this come to us for a vote?
11th board meeting.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Item 8.5 is in regards to the OE and OHS track beds.
All right, on February 23rd, bids were publicly opened and read aloud for Oswego High School and Oswego East track projects. 2 contractors chose to submit bids for this project. A low base bid was submitted by Schroeder Asphalt Services from Huntley, Illinois, in the amount of $797,000. The second lowest base bid was submitted by Abbey Paving from Aurora, Illinois, in the amount of $808,335,000 in consideration, including consideration of allowance.
Bless you. In consideration of what?
The allowance.
Oh, okay.
$100,000 allowance. Alternates, OHS, full depth track amount, $61,000 for Abbey Paving. Their bid alternate number 2, concrete ribbon curb, was submitted in the amount of $145,605. Their bid for alternate number 3, OEHS, reduced pavement and track services, was submitted as a deduction in the amount of $38,055. Schroeder Asphalt Services submitted a bid alternate number 1, OHS full depth track, in the amount of $75,000. Their bid alternate number 2, concrete ribbon curb, was submitted in the amount of $120,000. Their bid alternate number 3, OEHS reduced pavement and track services, was submitted as a deduction in the amount of $39,970.50. Our recommendation is to award Schroeder Asphalt Services in the amount of $797,000 for the acceptance of both OE base bids and an additional $35,000.0.9250, excuse me guys, I'm rattling a little bit, for the OEHS alternates 1 and 3.
So, quick question. One of the options we'd been presented for this, I believe last year, when nobody bid for it, and thankfully we had bids this time, so yay! That's a really good thing. Was, and Mr. Howard, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but you're here. So, was one of these alternates that would make it easier to go to AstroTurf of some sort? That's a really big, fun conversation for people who play sports on those fields. Are we looking to recommend to do that extra option?
We are, Lori, and I'm glad you brought that up. That has been
Bill
a
even
topic.
knew. Darren,
We
you're off the hook.
we are asking you to accept all 3 alternates to go with it, and that is the middle one, and more so for that future use, right? We done that at OH when we redid that track last time, and we're set up to receive turf.
Okay, so you had already done that at OH. That's new
The
information.
OH is good. The last time we did major work there, that curb is in and it's set up.
Oh, I wasn't aware that we had that at one of our high schools already.
We do.
That
We
changes
do.
my mind a little bit.
So
Okay.
we
So
would
that's fair.
100% want to add that in over at OEHS in preparation for that day when we do get turf.
Okay. And yay that there were bids.
Okay, so am I?
Yay, there were bids, yes.
Am I missing something? So the $100,000 allowance with Abby is for what?
Like a contingency, so if they run into things that they don't
Okay.
find.
So
Now,
if
what we
we-
didn't include in here, I wanted to point out, is when we made this initial recommendation, it was for the base bids and only alternates 1 and 3. Alternate 2 is adding that ribbon curb, so if we get AstroTurf, our question for Todd, and he was able to verify that we already did that at OHS, so it's already done there, and it would be significantly more if we do that later. So if we were to convert the field it would be significantly more damaging and cost a lot more than $120,000 to do that at OE. So we were going to present that to the board and let you know that that is an extra $120,000. So that would bring the base bid up to the $797 plus the 35 plus the alternate 2 would be an additional $120,000. So
What's significant?
what's that?
What is significant?
Go.
They would have, basically, they would have to take out of all the
Yeah,
lanes
they
of the
have to
track, they would have to cut the outside lane all out, dig it all up, plus in order to do the work for the AstroTurf, they're gonna be driving equipment over that area. And then they're going to have to put in that curb ribbing, and then they're gonna have to add that last track layer back on in addition to AstroTurf. So, it would be a significant amount of work, and it wouldn't be seamless. I have a fear that it would look like it was added on to.
Well, okay, so look like it was added onto is not my big concern. My bigger concern is from when we talked about this, and it might have been right before you came on, Dominic, was if I remember correctly, Eugene, it wasn't triple, but it was gonna be a few $100,000 more than it would be to just add it in now while they're already tearing it all the way up. For me, the bigger issue is parity between the two high schools. And if we've done it in one, we should do it in the other. That being said, this is not carte blanche to go get AstroTurf or whatever we call that now.
Well, that's why I'm like,
Well, that
if
was
you don't get
my
the
question.
AstroTurf ever, then it's parity is not a thing. Then.
I mean, that's why Mr. Howard in the back corner is very interested in this conversation, I'm sure.
Can we,
Go ahead.
well, I was gonna ask, if we're using Abby for what we were just talking about, and if we used Abby for this, can we get a discount? Is that legal? Is that, I mean, can we ask for a discount if we're using them for what? No, can't do that?
No.
Can't say, hey, I'm bringing you
No.
our business on this,
It's like 2 appliances, get 200 off, right?
Can't do that?
And these were bid at the same time, so we went with the track bid and the tennis bid, and they submitted their best and lowest, and were obligated to.
Oh, see, I just asked Eugene, like, can we do that?
Oh, well, okay.
No, but I think that's something that maybe
Why
should
were
be
they
talked about. We are not
separate?
private entities, and so we have a bid process because we're a public entity,
Right.
and you can't shake down vendors like you can in the private sector. That's not how we work and operate. I'm
No.
sorry that people don't like that.
No, it's not about that. It's about consistency
I mean,
across
there's a
vendors.
whole lot of
Steward.
space between bidding and shaking
Trying to be
down.
good
I feel like
stewards.
we would land on the right side of that.
Right.
but, you know, just asking.
Right? No,
I
but
get
it's
it,
more
but I'm
about-
just saying,
it's more
it's
about-
not, I get it, but I'm saying the public sector works
Correct.
differently than the private sector, and this is a good learning opportunity for people to
Well,
understand.
do they give us consideration on their side too?
It doesn't work that way.
So-
I don't know what to tell people. I don't
Can-
make the rules.
Can I ask a question a little bit bigger? Maybe this is for Mr. Queen and Mr. Pesky. These were 2 projects that were part of the facility improvement plan. For the sake of those that don't have students that participate in these kinds of activities, going, why are my tax dollars so big dollar amounts going to these? You're also looking at improvements to other types of co-curricular activities that are also curricular in some natures. Like, we use the tennis courts for gym, but we also have a tennis team. We use the track fields for sports, all the sports, and we also use them for PE. So you're not just focusing on athletics. You're looking at fine arts. You're looking at the robotics programs, the Project Lead the Ways, the auto shops, the things like that have some co-curricular aspects. Is that true?
Yes, and the reason we're concentrating on these is just that safety concern and liability, Lori.
Yep. Thanks.
That's why they're forefront.
But you have the other things on there as well.
Yeah, those are, and that's what I'm glad you're saying that. This isn't, we're just doing this for athletics. This is
Right.
part of the larger facility grounds plan. These are some of our facilities, they're some of our grounds, and they're work that are to the point where the they are not safe anymore, and they need to be taken care of, or they're just going to get worse. So with that said, too, I'm glad you brought that up, because that kind of segues into our next thing, which I've got to give a huge kudo to Bill and his team. He's got some pictures here, so you can kind of see what the track looks like. But what he's really got is the Kluber scheduled facility maintenance plan, which was about a 10-year, but it really was about a 20-year facility plan and cost. Bill has taken that in his time that he's been in the district, and he has put the projects, linked what projects, what school years, and what cost, and has a 5-year plan that he'd like to present to the board here too. So you can see the projects we're asking you to improve or to approve are actually on that facility maintenance plan, along with a lot of other projects.
All right, so I can't take all the credit for this. My awesome assistant back there, Paul, helped me out a ton. So when I had to think about this, the things that safety and liability concerns and mission critical combined had to play the forefront, right? Those had to be my biggest topics when I looked at this. And for me, safety's got to be key, and that's anything we're going to cover. So what you're looking at, and there's several different projects. You're going to see a lot of building automated systems. You're going to see some door repair. You're going to see some roofs, all the way through this whole 5-year plan. BAS system, Bill, what is that, right? Well, that's the building automated system. That's what drives and runs these buildings. With no BAS system, we don't run chillers, we don't run boilers, we don't run any of that stuff. Doors, hardware, anything like that, that's going to be your security related. We're going to fall back into that heightened security and safety that I was talking about there. Slips, trips, and hazards. You're going to see some concrete, some parking lots. So what we've been doing is, for the past 10, 15, 20 years, we've thrown tons and tons of salt at these buildings to get them open for school. And salt and plow blades, they just deteriorate your infrastructure. And we're at that point now that some of these areas need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed early in this plan, along with the BAS and the roofs. If we can't keep them dry in the classrooms, then we're in trouble. You know, we got problems. So as you dive in through there, you're going to see a lot of BAS systems. Well, that was a time when we did a big boom in construction, and now we're at that time where things need to be updated or totally upgraded. Moving forward into the high schools, you're going to see more so of this. Polycarbonate skylight panels, OEHS. We have a super problem here with this great skylight that we have in this cafeteria that's leaking. That needs to be addressed as part of that critical. Tennis courts and tracks, both in this plan. And when I put them in this plan, I put them in there with the exception that you would be accepting all of them and give you the choice to decide what alternates you wanted to take in and out, but I wanted to at least fit them into the plan so they fit. So these are our numbers. If you can hit me with the next one, I want to get to where John's, there we go. So my current operational OM budget is about $750,000 per year. Fiscal 26 and 27 projections include increasing OM budget to $1.5 million and $3.5 million respectively. These are monies that we're not using out of this DSEB that I'm using all this other project money for. So we'll have this available to us to take care of these other jobs and safety concerns that come forth. Debt service extensions bonds will be repaid in 2027 and can be reissued for additional Envisions 308 scheduling maintenance projects. So if you look on those first
Point of order. I don't see a facility improvement plan presentation on our agenda.
No, it's part of the tennis court.
Yeah,
It's part of the tennis court bids, but this isn't about the tennis court bids at all.
Yeah, we were asked by board members if this, are the tennis courts and tracks part of our plan? And so what we gave here is just, and Bill's going into a little bit more detail, but what we wanted to show you is we do have a 5-year plan, and those are on the plan.
Thank you, but what you're giving me, all due respect, lovely presentation, sorry to interrupt, but at the same time, this is a completely different topic
Yeah.
than tennis court bids, track bids, and a stadium scoreboard.
The board has you have the information you need in regards to the tennis courts and the tracks that we've just talked about.
Yeah, and I don't see, and,
If you want to bring this back at another.
yeah, as
that'd
an
be great.
actual, its own, yeah, that would be, yeah.
I apologize.
No. Thank you for the hard work, and I'm sorry to interrupt it. I just want to make sure that we give our community the opportunity to be present for this topic, which is a very big one and a very important one.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord.
Glossed over that. I didn't even know it was on here. I said to Eugene, wait, where are we going with this? So yeah, we need time to digest this and to understand what it's about.
All right, item 8.6 is in regards to Oswego East and the need
Thank
for
you.
a new scoreboard.
Thank you.
New scoreboard in the stadium. Mrs. Comitas and Mr. Arnson are here to present.
Wait. I'm so confused.
Good evening. We're here to present some information tonight regarding potential new scoreboard here for the stadium at Oswego East High School. The current scoreboard we have out there right now is approximately 18 years old. It currently goes through repairs and kind of controlled exchanges to make sure it's functioning in its normal capacity, as you see on a Friday night or any other event you would see out there. What we've looked to do, though, is partner with a company that basically, scoreboards are very expensive. As you've heard tonight, things are costly. What we're looking to do, though, is partner with a company called Power Ad, and what they do is specialize in advertisements for scoreboards. How this works is the company actually purchases the scoreboard for us. What we do then is, obviously, after it's installed, you'll see in the center there is an electronic monitor, for lack of a better term, and then on either side of that scoreboard are advertisements that would be there. What would happen with this is we have full control of what advertisements are displayed on that. We don't pay $1 into it. The company pays for everything up front until those advertisement fees are paid off, which is usually about 5 years for a scoreboard like this, which is $75,000 plus. So the installation would be the only thing we would pay for. The installation would be covered through an athletic activity fund, which Tony Millard already has earmarked for some funds with that. But essentially, we get a brand new scoreboard for no cost at the district.
Love it. I know we've been talking about this for a long time. My question is more to us as board members. We've had policies that have been detrimental to utilizing this sort of benefit, which I know we've wanted to use. One, this is for Oswego East. OHS, had their parent boosters paid for that?
We replaced the board about 7 years ago.
And did we pay for that at the district?
Yeah, the district paid for it, but there's a scroller underneath it, it's not as nice as that one is, and the boosters paid for that portion of the OHS board.
So that's
Portion, yeah.
That's one. Our policies on that and like what goes to one high school goes to the other, which I feel has been pretty well represented so far tonight that it's both high schools. I'm curious how that affects the policy, if we need to make a change on that, because I know we've talked about needing to in the past.
Good timing.
Well,
Right.
I was going to say that with the policy piece, I think we should have a policy for whoever's got oversight over this for sure.
Yeah, we're going to need something.
We do have a policy that does address it.
Which I know we were talking about changing, I just don't remember if we actually did change it.
So currently, the way it sits at this moment without any changes does require the board approval, which is why we're bringing this to you in this way. We'll have the information and then come back again for approval for this project. The proposed potential changes would be to kind of create a plan, much like you're saying, so we aren't so limited with that, and approve the plan and who oversees it at the district level, and then move forward with it in that respect.
And is it then worth having that same I mean, listen, I'm going to try to stay just not get into the whole can of worms that is parent contributions for these things versus public contributions for these things. But do we then need to do the same thing for OHS?
So we have had discussions with Mr. Howard about some additional needs at OHS. They were looking at potentially some digital signage inside. And so this would be project one. And the reason we chose this as kind of a trial, we've never engaged in anything with this particular company before. So we kind of wanted to trial and see how this is going to go. But there is potential for us to expand this across multiple indoor and outdoor facilities for our sports needs. And the reason this sign was chosen is because, as Mr. Arnson kind of alluded to, we actually have to kind of disassemble one sign somewhere else on the athletic fields in order to operate this one, and then take the parts back out of this one and put them in the other one. So it's not really functional.
And I just, for the interest of moving the conversation along and not having it go for all, because this is a topic. So I now just heard you add, we get a scoreboard, OHS gets indoor digital signage with ads, and now is that what?
No,
I
no,
thought
we
I
were just saying
heard?
we're entertaining multiple, sitting down with the athletic directors. We met with them and kind of determined sort of their needs assessment, similar to what
Big topic.
Bill was sort of talking about as far as facility needs go. This one tops the list because of the functionality and what is necessary. It's going to be necessary to replace it no matter what. We're just looking at, is this a potential alternative for funding that? And if so, and that works well, then there's other things already on the list at athletics in both schools that we could potentially company for.
This has actually been a very discussed topic at our policy committee meeting, because we are literally recreating
This sign?
not this sign, but what
What it represents.
boosters,
Yeah.
when we're taking advertising, who we're taking advertising from, and who we're not, and who is controlling that in the district.
Well, and
So-
here's, to totally piggyback off of that, for example, I'm attending my child's required curricular band concert, and yes, my child plays that sport or fine arts program, and they're asking for $30,000 for sound shells that were removed because of a safety concern that was taken away from the program. So parent boosters are now being asked to pay for those
And
when they're curricular.
So we asked, Allie and I.
this is, this
Allie
is
and
not
I
curricular.
asked the administration, and Dr. Kincaid, please feel free to we asked because there isn't a lot of parity across the board. And so we asked the administration to look at this and to come back to us with a recommendation. So first and foremost, I love this idea. I actually know other districts that have used this.
Totally love
and
it.
it works really well, the company.
Yeah.
That
that's
is
great.
not, I think, what the discussion,
No.
we're grateful for this, and this is
Yes.
such a great way to utilize resources. What the bigger discussion that Mrs. Doyle is talking about is what would hold up my vote on this. And I know that the administration, amongst a million other things that we've asked them to look at as we've gone through the policy manual, how does this work, and how do we set the tone moving forward?
Well, and
parents
what
pay
is,
So
what
hold on a
needs to be
second.
paid for
Can-
by parent organizations
Correct.
versus the district?
Can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah.
So here's the part I get that. I mean, my kids in band, and they bring home a
band
thing.
sport,
Yeah,
too.
right. And hey, donate. But I remember as a coach coming across a situation where parent wanted to donate, and this is my other district, parent wanted to donate uniforms, and all of a sudden people are pissed off about it, right? And I'm like, what do you want me to do? Tell the parent not to donate uniforms?
Yeah.
So my question, I guess, bringing this back, is this going to cost us money?
No.
So like I don't like I get it, like
You
I
need to
understand. Hold on, let me finish. Like, so I understand being upset that we can't find something for band. I'm upset too that we don't have something for band too, because my son's in band. But if we don't have, let me finish. But if we don't have something out there that's not free, I don't like. yes, we should find things that are free. That would be great. And I would love to find this also and work with this for OHS also. But I'm puzzled, like, why we wouldn't try this, because if we can do this here, I guarantee that the scoreboard at OHS is not going to last forever. And I'm hoping we can duplicate this there. And we probably have multiple
But then
scoreboards
that-
as
but
well.
Jared,
but we
you're-
also
you're
hold on. Let me
misunderstanding.
finish though. Let me
Okay,
finish.
but do finish.
Yeah, well, I will. I don't do this to you, so I will. But we just need a policy, I think, to make sure that we are making sure we have oversight, because that's the piece I'm concerned is the policy, and I'm sure we do,
That's
right?
literally what we were saying.
Actually, we don't.
But, well, and if we don't, then that's definitely what we need. Right.
That's what we're
And-
saying.
And great, but I don't know why it would negate. But I don't know why it would negate us from accepting something that's free.
Nobody's saying that,
Yeah.
Jared. You must have misunderstood, and I apologize for that.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
The conversation is about, we had one high school have parent boosters pay for something lesser than this. We have had a history in this district of not providing equity or
totally
wanting
know
to,
that.
and we all know all of this. It's not whether or not we take the free sign. We really want to do that. We need to make sure, because it's our job, to make sure that we have our policies in line and that we are paying attention to what is equitable, not only between the high schools, but between different parent organizations. And I'm not just talking about band. I'm talking about Wolf parents. I'm talking about elementary PTAs. What are we requiring our parent organizations to provide for? And what are we spending our man hours, to the earlier point, there's man hours involved in getting the free sign, which is not free. We need to know what the costs are so that we make good decisions for all of these areas, not just the one.
Can I pivot it back to the administration? Maybe to meet both conditions, we present this as a pilot and we say, we would like to pilot this opportunity at Oswego East. And if this turns out in a year to work, we'd like to come back to you and say, here's where we've looked at the other schools. In this case, it's just one, but we've looked at, but bring it to the board as a pilot and say, we'd like to take this opportunity, and here's where we can take the learnings and then make sure it's equitable across the district.
Well,
And so I think that meets, I
well,
don't,
we outlay the funds then.
what?
We outlay the funds
There's
to
no funds.
install.
Yeah, there's no.
That's the only outlay that we have, regardless of whether it's a pilot or a long-term thing.
But
So we'd have to.
What we're missing is, and what Lori and I are trying to explain, is that there are parents who have been in this district for years who, and I'm going to use the easiest, lowest hanging fruit. Football gets all the attention, gets the money, gets the what have you. And then there is show choir who has to literally raise all their money and doesn't have the same opportunity. And so I likened this when we were talking about it in the policy committee to my alma mater, which football is a big deal, gets all the money, but it also helps pay for the other sports. So what we're trying to talk about are two very different things. What they're bringing forth, I don't have any problems with this. This is a no-brainer. This is easy. But as the board, we have to understand that this has ramifications beyond just saying yes. We have to address things that haven't been addressed before. And we have asked the administration to look at this type of, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm hard pressed to ever turn down anything, that's not going to really cost us much relative to what we get.
Yeah.
So I don't know many parents that would, regardless of the program.
So,
I'm sorry.
So my question.
I don't know.
Honestly,
Well,
Dominic,
hold on a second. Hold on,
But if
because we made an
it's
assumption.
free.
We made an assumption that there's going to be man hours cost. Can you give us what that is?
Sure. So the only man hours associated with it, as you can see, the design's already been presented up here.
People. Sorry, people hour cost. Thank you.
People hours. Really, the district's involvement after the contract is launched was really just to approve the ads, and that's an option. Of course, we're taking that option to see and approve each one that comes forth. So that'd be signed off on, and they try to go after multi-year agreements, so there's very little change. as far as the advertisers, between advertisers. But other than that, all of the solicitation, contracts, the negotiations, collection of funds, ordering of equipment, all of that is done through this third-party company, which is kind of what was ideal because we don't have the man hours to go out and sell and produce all of that on our own at this time.
So help me out, because the people hour cost then, to me, isn't that offset? If I read this correct, it's offset by the revenue stream that you're going to get from eventually from the.
So the contract's kind of two parts. So for each ad that they sell over the course of the 10-year contract, it's a 50-50 split between the organization, the Power Ad group, and us as a school district. But our 50% allocation gets pushed towards the cost that the sign in full cost up until that is fully received, which typically is around 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
The remaining years on that contract for any advertising that remains on the sign for the rest of that remainder of that 10-year contract is then a 50-50 split with revenue coming into the district. At that point, at the conclusion of the 10-year contract, there's an option to buy into an additional renewal of the contract stating that they'll continue to sell advertising for our sign at a 50-50 split, or we can choose to end at that point in time and maintain the advertising on our own. So there is revenue potential. We just won't see it right away. Initially, it'll be allocated towards the cost of the sign.
And so it sounds like sorry, real quick. So it sounds like the people hour cost, if I'm hearing you correct, is pretty.
Very minimal from the district side.
So
All right.
the people hour cost I was referring to was in reference to Dr. Petsky and Mr. Queen's saying that working with the source work would save the people hours utilized in building the bid. Just creating the presentation as people hours. So there will be some cost associated with administering some aspects of this. I don't think that that's a deciding factor for me. But for clarity, it's worth knowing what it was that I was referring to, which is a little bit different than I think what you were getting out of it.
Thank you for that assumption too.
Go ahead, Eugene.
My only question would be the terms of the agreement. I just would like to see it before we approve it.
Absolutely. So we're still kind of going back and forth with legal and with the company kind of finalizing a few things. So we will absolutely provide that finalized contract for review prior to coming back to the board for approval.
Got it. Does it state anything in regards to a service agreement or maintenance of the
That
sign?
was just, I was gonna say the same.
So yeah, I was speaking with Tony about this today, and there is some warranties on it, but largely speaking, the service on it would be on us, just as it is right now. And we work with Daktronics is the company we work with right now that would provide the scoreboard, which is the company we're currently working with now to repair scoreboard. So there is a kind of a limited warranty on that too. I don't have the specified months or years on that, but mostly the repair costs would come back to us. But with a new product like this, you're not going to see a lot of repair costs, or hope to not see a lot of repair costs.
So we don't own it. We would own it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so what are the
And
asks?
the land it's built on.
What are the asks that we're making of administration, and what are the asks that we're making of the policy committee? What are they?
I think for the policy committee, there should be, whoever has oversight for this needs to understand exactly what they're approving so that they are covered under a board policy.
Teresa, do you right now handle our advertising for athletics?
Athletics is kind of a mixed bag right now, and that definitely is the piece that we brought up at the cabinet level. That the information was brought back, via Dr. Kincaid to the policy committee. The idea of creating more structure around that athletics program. This would kind of be like you called it a pilot, a great first step for us, because one of the agreements, if we move forward with this, we can't also be selling a banner to be, tied on the bottom of the sign on our own. Like it would become the streamlined process for advertising at that specific facility.
Yes.
And that would kind of develop some pricing structure. So it's an opportunity for us to really kind of get our feet wet. Darren and I have had conversations for many years about the desire to have some more solid things in place. They're kind of handled ad hoc right now. There is advertising that we did mention, the digital signage potentially inside OHS and maybe eventually OE that would give another chance to not have banners all over the place and be able to sell some advertising and kind of condense that. But we are just scratching the surface on that. And this this truly is kind of like the pilot because it is going to be the first one, but given that we have a need, we thought this was the perfect time to bring it forth and try this rather than taking all that money out of the district.
Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
you don't have to solicit the advertising.
Yes.
You know, and in 10 years, who knows, we might be in a different position where we can, you know, dedicate, you know, something we see the revenue potential. And this is, again, something that I know that's been talked about for years and years and years, a way to increase so basically we are getting ad revenue. We're increasing our ad revenue in order to pay for this. That's essentially what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And it's been talked about forever. So this is, you know, I'm just, you know, again, appreciative, kind of like before, that you guys are coming with solutions, the things that you've heard about, and concerns of the community and thoughts. So I just want to make sure that, you know, it's pretty clear what you're bringing to us. This is something that has been asked for a very long time.
Yes,
So-
thank you. It's great.
I want to go full circle with this, back to something that I know I harp on a lot, but the other part of this pilot, to what Mrs. Doyle said, is we don't know what we don't know. So, right, what we need to know is, okay, who's going to own certain parts of it? And on already full job descriptions, what does that look like? Does it actually give us man hours? But I hate the term man hours. Does it actually give us
People hours
Worker
was
hours,
human
yeah.
hours.
human
Administrative
hours? Does it
yeah.
actually give us working time back? And is this something that is actually streamlining processes that we need to streamline? And so what I get concerned about when we talk about, oh, but this is so easy, it's not going to cost us anything. Everything comes at a cost. It's whether it's a soft cost or a hard cost. So what I would hope that you would include in your learnings, in your report back to the board, is who is handling it, how much time it did take, and where it's relieving pressure points, whether it be HR pressure points or what have you. But, you know, you're going to have the maintenance team, you know, involved in this. You are going to have, you know, so there are people hours that are part of this, and I don't just want to gloss over that. And those things may shift. So it may have been someone else's job before, but now with this new, you know, opportunity, it shifts to somebody else. These things are really important when we talk about job descriptions and utilization rates, whether we're putting something more on the maintenance team that they don't have the time to do. So those are the things that we need to hear back in the pilot learnings, you know, and how that all works together.
Well,
So when they,
The incremental. yeah.
Well,
So-
actually, are we the first district to ever do this?
No.
No.
So, do we know that? Do we know that what do other districts do?
well, that's what they gotta come back with.
Well,
It sounds
yeah.
like there's more homework to be done, and when they come back, is it gonna be more information, or are we going to be asked to vote on that? I just don't know if we're ready. If they're ready, if you guys are ready, if everybody's ready.
I'm
So-
comfortable voting on it as long as we have the policies in place.
But that's what I'm saying. So is all of that going to happen before, what, our next meeting? Or when do we think this is coming back?
The only, it was planned to come to the next meeting, and the only holdback for that would be, obviously, as you know, it takes a long lead time to get things in motion, and so the longer we wait, the longer we kind of play that game. If you talk about man hours with our maintenance staff of disassembling one sign to make the other sign functional and vice versa. So this is one that really, it's not a would be nice to, but kind of we really do need to have a solution at this facility. But to answer Mr. Ploger's question, as far as not the only school, we do have a number of calls out. Actually, I have another follow-up call Wednesday with DeKalb's athletic director. They use the exact same company. They gave us a list of a number of companies, or a number of schools that this particular company's worked with in the past. So we are going to kind of talk through the timeline and the process and be able to have some more insight, and we'll share that all with you, as well as the finalized report, or excuse me, the finalized contract and a report to you hopefully here within the next couple of weeks, so you have some time to look over that and ask any questions. And if there's no concerns at that point, it would be nice to be able to bring just this one sign, this one contract forward, so that we could begin work on this particular one.
So your opinion is that the
Can we
chicken and
give
the egg?
Dr. Kincaid an
that
opportunity,
You can have the
please?
sign and then the policy.
Have you been trying? Sorry,
I'm
I didn't
sorry.
see you.
No,
Thank
no.
you.
I just want to clarify. We currently, what they're referring to is Board Policy 825, and there's some ambiguity in athletics. So on the air of caution, as Teresa mentioned in cabinet, we wanted to bring this to the board in order to be fully compliant with your current board policy.
Yes.
The discussion that we're having in the policy committee is actually some more flexibility to allow for additional opportunities.
Okay.
That's what we've been talking about
As they're
adding.
presenting
Yeah.
right now, it is in compliance with the current board policy.
Yep.
Okay.
What we've also talked about then, as
It's more
board member Johnson has mentioned, is the administrative procedure with kind of the not to
No.
complement the policy. But no, right now, they're referring to 825, and we wanted to make sure, better safe than sorry, that we brought it for board approval to be completely compliant with your current board policy before we went to full review.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Dr. Kincaid. The easing of that policy is the thing that's been under discussion for quite some time. And that's the piece that I want to make sure we've got at least an awareness that we need to have a conversation about loosening that, because this will have people hour implications. So that's the concern, but also to be prepared for that. You get a scoreboard, you get digital signs, you get the, are we making sure that it's equitable between the high schools?
One last thing to consider, you don't have to answer it now, but are there any exclusivity agreements? Once we agree to these ads, do they prevent us from having a fence sign from another
No,
or
that's a good
similar
question.
company? Well, I don't think,
So there are parameters in the contract on the specific facility that it's talking about. And so, yes, like with the fence that's around this scoreboard, there would be limitations as far as like selling space, not necessarily informational banners that are there. But the nice thing is the center part, the fully digital display board there is not just advertising, it's also an information board for us to be able to use to put up players or a first down or, different information about the game. So hopefully it'll also lessen the clutter in general around the field. But it doesn't apply to like athletics wide or school wide as far as that exclusivity. It's only at the facility in which they're placing the sign so that there's not competition between the district selling advertising space in the same space as the company.
that makes sense, but that also could
Yeah.
conflict with the policy, so we have to make sure that we understand that the terms. That's why, this is the reason why I'm asking for the
Yeah.
terms.
That's why I was saying, yeah, I think one of the reasons, again, I didn't think we were the first school to do this, so I think that's something as a board member I would want to hear is, hey, what policies were affected, what changes did they need to make on a policy level? I'm fine with saying, okay, yes to this in lieu of, we need to make sure we streamline and fast track those changes so that they can be talked about quickly at the policy level, because what I'm a little leery of and what I'm a little apprehensive about is, I guarantee that, well, I shouldn't say guarantee because that's an assumption, but I would say it wouldn't surprise me at all that when they did this, they did have to make some changes to policy, and that is the piece that I want to know about. That's the piece I need to hear about as a board member. Is I need to hear what changes and how quickly they were able to make those changes in order to approve this. If it was like, hey, it wasn't that hard, we had a couple policy meetings and we got it done quickly, fine, I'm on board. If it was, oh no, this was a long process, then that makes me a little bit more apprehensive about it.
Literally, we just spoke about this last week, and it is something that, we've been meeting once, sometimes twice a week for 3 hours at a time. Dr. Kincaid makes a list, and then she takes it back to the cabinet, and she works with the cabinet to determine, do we have to change a policy? Do we have to add it to the new admin policy procedure guide? Or is this something that, we need to talk about something else happening? So I just want to say that it is timely. I think we can move quickly. Our goal is to have a policy manual draft to you. I can't look at her when I say this. It was for the April 11th meeting. We can't make it happen because of everything that's coming at us right now, but we can definitely address this policy alone, or whatever policies outside of the draft being presented. Is that fair?
And
I
it
have-
sounds like just a loosening of it, because it already is,
It's already in
or already
compliance.
abides by the policy.
I have full faith that if the DeKalb Barbs can get something done quickly, then I'm pretty sure that the Oswego SD3 can get it done.
They have a
All
great
right.
bagel shop.
All right, let's move on.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing an innovative idea
Yes,
to the board.
absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Great.
At 9:30 at night.
All right, item 8.7 is regards to our food service contract. Dr. Pesky?
Yeah, thank you. So just wanted to present some information about food service decisions as we look at where we are. The last food service contract that we had, its start date was July 19, with annual price increases typically subject to CPI. Last year, we entered into a one-year emergency contract with Aramark, and if you recall that conversation, it was to access additional reimbursements for supply chain funds, about $340,000, and also utilize some additional reimbursement through the Keep Kids Fed Act, and that actually allowed us to hold food prices to what they were pre-COVID, so that families, they went from 2 years of everyone was on free lunch or was given lunches to now they were going to have to pay for those lunches again. So for 2023-24, the food service contract, what I'm recommending is to enter into a second year, one-year emergency contract. We've been looking at putting together that RFP and going out to bid again. And what we are hearing is that it is an inflated market. And so what we can do is maintain our costs. The district could avoid going to RFP into a known inflationary market. And where that comes from is CPI typically has been 0.8, 1.4, 2.3%. You guys know about it through the levy. We are, school districts don't levy any more than 5%, but the CPIs have been 7%, 6.5%. And that's what we would expect to see in our food contract increases. If we do the second one-year emergency contract, it would allow us to maintain the food prices and the contracts that we have now from our 2019 RFP. And we would, in the fall of 2023, so in October, start writing that RFP for another food contract. But that brings up another additional point for the board to consider, and that's the Keep Kids Fed Act is no longer an option. So for next school year, lunch prices could be increased to keep up with our reimbursement rate. And I just wanted to show you real quick how that's determined. So we use a tool called the Paid Lunch Equity Tool. And according to that tool, the way it works is a student lunch should be, or a paid student should be paying the difference between what the reimbursement is between what we get for a free student lunch reimbursement and what we get for a reimbursement for a free, or for a student who pays what we're reimbursed. The way that works, currently it's $4.33 that we get reimbursed for a free student, and for every student that buys a lunch, we get reimbursed 77 cents. So when you subtract that 77 cents from the $4.33 reimbursement, that's about $3.56. The reimbursement rates are adjusted annually, so that number changes a little bit every year. What I provided the school board here is a 23-year look at what have our lunch rates been. So you can see in the one column the school years. You can see in the second column what high school lunches have been, or junior high and high school, if we had any increases that year, and what the elementary lunches have been and any increases there. And you can see that it's been about, every other year, 15 cents. There were a couple years where we skipped and we made up that difference in another year. And then we had, if you see in 2014, 15, 16, 17, we didn't really have any increases. We did a 10-cent increase in 2018-19, and then we did a 30-cent increase then in 2019-20, and we haven't had any increases since then. So we did talk about this at Cabinet a little bit, and when we looked at it, we just thought, looking at what our history has been and where we've been, that perhaps we would want to look at raising our lunch rates to get to that $3.56 median, and then every year just have a small increase for families to keep up with that model. So that's the information that we wanted to present, and I would be open to any questions or any direction that the board would like me to follow up on.
Have they been keeping up? My concern with Aramark over the last several years, even pre-pandemic and certainly post, is that they have not necessarily been able to provide adequate staffing according to what our RFP was for and what our needs had been. So they had been understaffed. I know that they still are. How far away from meeting the bid parameters are they currently?
You know, and that's, we've been having that conversation. They too have been impacted by the staffing shortages and whatnot. And there was a rework of the numbers before I got here. So in order to save on the lunch costs, it was taken out of the staffing costs that they had in their contract. So there was some known decisions about staffing levels. And so what happened is where we normally had people in the lunchrooms who were serving, they would then clean the tables, clean the lunchroom. A lot of those responsibilities were put at the building level. So rather than there being extra staff members on Aramark's team, they were just really there to serve lunch, and then the buildings and grounds were there to clean the lunchrooms.
But also they were doing things pre-pandemic already, even like not having junior high snack lines, which can impact behavior.
Okay.
And I know that we have talked about that for a number of years, which is why it is interesting that it is, one, falling on our staff members, increasing their responsibilities, but two, you know, if we're not able to fully open the facilities we have, they're not even able to provide enough staff to actually serve the lunch or serve the ancillary portions like the snack lines and things. And the lunch sizes don't necessarily fill up junior high kids.
Yeah, and so I would kind of quantify that more as like the services. So you had mentioned, and that's something I can look into, the junior high snack lines to see if those are services that they're offering or why they are not, if they are not.
And I don't want to limit it just to one thing that I happened to remember. But I would imagine that this would follow through at the elementary and high school level also. I'm just not aware of a specific example like that.
Okay.
It is definitely at the elementary level as well.
Definitely at high school as well.
Yeah, I'm hearing things about no deli sandwiches. One student had asked me about specifically, but you know, I invited them to come to a board meeting. So, but the point remains. I'd like to know before I would look at any more contracts where things are standing with that, just to have, you know, a clear view.
So so basically we want to kind of take a look at what's in that contract and make sure that they're fulfilling all of those obligations that they've been, and if they've been renegotiated, how that's changed from when the RFP went out in 2019 to what they're doing now.
No, like, are they fulfilling the staffing requirements that we have? Because what I just heard was they've made some known changes where some of the cleaning responsibilities are now falling on our custodial staff. And thank you for sharing that, because I wasn't aware of that.
Well, and that was to maintain to not raise prices. Typically, they go up by CPI. So, and every year we negotiate and bring to the board, here's the lunch contract, and then here's what it's being increased to. And with budget cuts, we are asked to not raise those costs So we came up with some other creative solutions, is my understanding.
But that doesn't speak to the fact that we don't have all of the food lines even open, is kind of the point I'm making. Well, like I just mentioned, right? And it sounds like it looks, I see Dr. Sparlin nodding that he's understanding what it is I'm talking about.
And we advertise for them too, on our sites. And
We do advertise, maybe on the new scoreboard.
Do you know what I struggle with? I struggle with the fact that food is an integral part to feeding our children's brains and energy throughout the day. And I don't know who has spent time in a cafeteria or not, but the amount of waste that kids throw away because the food isn't good, because the way it's prepared, the way it's presented, is pretty incredible, because I've been able to go to, and I will say my experience is limited to elementary over the last couple years, but it is pretty, it's hard, like we have to be prudent with our finances. There's no doubt about that, but kids deserve that nutrition and that food to help them, enable them to be the best in their learning environment. And what I'm struggling with is that I've heard that it is not meeting that requirement. And so while the finances are important to understand, is it actually helping our students? And I don't know, I've said this for years, I don't feel that we're getting the best out of Aramark, and I don't know where our leverage is with that, with being able to say, you know, what can we do better? You know, we're partners, what can we do better? Versus just another contract renewal. It's not just a contract renewal to me.
I think that kind of goes along with my one question I had with this, which was, are we strictly looking at money with this vendor? I mean, is that why we're here? Is it all about the money? And if not, well then what is it about? Because like I've heard, like, you're not alone. Like I've heard the same thing for years, right? And so, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm willing to explore every option, every perspective. I mean, is it just, I don't know, is it, I should be careful what I say, but like, you know, what is it, right? At what point? Like, is it us? Is it, I don't know. You know, I don't know what it is, right?
Some of it, honestly, because we have these conversations on a monthly basis with our Aramark team, and we talk about the menus, and we talk about the types of food we have, the restrictions that they have. I mean, they can't just serve anything. It's got to be that, you know, kind of that food that's offered, a healthy, balanced lunch. And
Right,
we get a lot of kids who don't want to take them all.
The reality of that and what is actually being served is two different things. Have we surveyed parents or asked for student feedback, or, you know, I mean, that's the reality of it. So, I mean, again, we're in a situation where we have what, I don't know, can we do that before we have to have, is this action? I'm sorry.
This is just for information today, yeah.
You know, it's a quick pulse survey. Is this meeting, you're asking 7 people who have various experience and discussions with community members, but we have to utilize the people that we are serving too, right? Like a quick pulse survey, it can be 3 or 5 questions, and if people fill it out, they fill it out. If they don't, they don't. But let's leverage our families and our students.
Yeah, I think that's something that we can do. I don't know if we've done that. We haven't done it in my time here, done a survey on the lunch program, the offerings, and things of that nature. But that would also inform the RFP. It would inform the group that's serving the lunches.
And use that
so
feedback and provide it to
It's
Aramark.
It's
Yeah.
long past due.
Yeah. I think that's definitely something that we can put together. So by all means. Yep.
West Aurora does this quite frequently. They put together a really quick pulse survey. They put the link on their Facebook page, and they keep it open for a very short time. And it just is great feedback for these types of situations, you know.
Yeah, and I think too, it would help, based on the information we get, it might help clarify some of the misunderstood about the lunch program
Yes.
issues. It's like there might be some education points in here that we can say that, oh, that's not exactly what we do, and here's why or
Yes.
why not. So, yeah, I think that we can make that happen.
All right, any other questions for Dr. Petsky on the food service contract? All right, thank you, Dr. Petsky, most appreciated.
Yes, thank you for taking our feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8.8 is in regards to our web content and mass communication tool, and Mrs. Komitas is here to present.
I brought along Scott Bedell as our district webmaster. He can talk the
Hi,
lingo
Scott.
more than I can, but we will kind of kick you off. So kind of joke around like, why not have some more changes in the same year that we have a student information system, we'll have a new superintendent, so why not a whole new website content and mass communication tool? So the reason we're bringing this forward to you is that we received information, unfortunately, just a matter of weeks after we re-signed a 5-year agreement with Blackboard, that they were in fact being acquired by another company called Final Site. And while there has been confirmation that the contract terms would be honored with the new owner, there's also been several concerns in this short time that we've already had as far as support channels and service and functions. So we kind of want to paint that picture for you and see sort of where we're at and let you know what we've explored as potential alternatives. So Final Site is the new parent company that purchased out Blackboard. They, of course, have the goal of integrating all of the existing Blackboard customers into their platform. By trying to get everybody to kind of commit earlier, especially in these longer contracts that are in place, they've offered an incentive for what they're titling as free conversion. Nothing's free, we discovered that earlier, but there is a significant cost savings in making the commitment to move to their new platform prior to June 30th of this year. That deadline coming rather quickly is what kind of spurred our department to take a look at, okay, if we're going to be changing vendors, because clearly Blackboard will no longer be an option for us, is Final Site really the best choice? And what other options are out there? What do they look like as far as cost comparison and capacity? I mentioned already, over the last 6 months, we've had some less than desirable service from Blackboard. In a lot of cases, you know, Scott's the one that brings forth the problem to Blackboard and kind of has to stay on them to get those answers. And we've had some issues with some total outages and some other things. So also another reason why we were looking. And then when we did look at Final Site as far as what their costs would look like for us to do a conversion and then what the cost would look like to have them as our service provider, they're either at or above a number of other providers. So it's not like it's the best deal. So obviously when we're making an investment, we wanted to look at a number of other things. Scott kind of took the lead on this. This is a listing here of the vendors that we looked at that he either engaged in a demo or we had a meeting or proposal submitted from. As far as looking on the surface, this list would even be much longer, but these are ones that we engaged with in some way to kind of gather more information. When we're talking about both the website content management system as well as the mass communications, both of those right now are satisfied by Blackboard. There are companies that do only one or only the other. Our desire would be to stay with one company for integration purposes. When we looked at these, when Scott kind of did the initial pass through, we built a little bit bigger team of some of our folks here that frequently utilize the website. Obviously, Scott as the webmaster, myself, Cindy, and Michelle Early, because she utilizes the the website to advertise quite a bit of programs and maintain a number of resources. So we had some good people around the table to take a look at that, and then Scott built a very intricate matrix of the capabilities that we were looking for in any of these service providers, as well as what were their design options. Some have provide more user-friendly options, some more customization. Some of it costs more depending on who you're looking at. Accessibility is still a huge thing for us. For those of you that were around when we went through that whole original complaint in regards to accessibility, we still want to maintain a very high level of accessibility. Ease of use. I don't know how many people realize this, but we have a lot of users of our website across the district. So there's teacher pages, there's pages for individual schools, there's pages for departments, there's calendars that get posted. So we have a lot of users, and we had to make sure that this really is user-friendly, intuitive programming, as well as a conversion timeline, because clearly we don't want to be without either one of these tools. So how quickly could we move something as big as our site over? And then costs and customer satisfaction. So Scott spent some time going through some references. We brought forth our final two for consideration in a real in-depth way. Final Site and Catapult K-12 are the two that floated to the top. Again, Final Site is the company that purchased Blackboard. That is currently who we are working with at this point in time, but we are still on the legacy Blackboard platform. We have not converted to the Final Site platform. Both would be great options. Both have pros and cons. So Final Site, again, a lot of flexibility with customization and shifting layouts. They are a larger company. They do have a lot of resources. They interface well with our student information system. If we were to stay with Final Site, we'd have the most flexibility as far as a conversion timeline goes, because we'd be operating under the parameters with them both for our old site and our new site. So as far as conversion rate, converting over, we'd be able to kind of run side by side and turn one on and turn one off. However, they do have limits on the users, the sizes, and files. So everything was kind of priced out individually. So if we need more than this many users, it's this much per user. If our files are this size or bigger, it's this much. If we have this many pages, now it's an add-on. So the price, even though it looks somewhat comparable in the beginning, we're a little bit worried about how quickly that price could rise on the add-ons. And then the accessibility concerns, there is a certain tool that comes with the purchase that would not be adequate, would not be something we would recommend utilizing for the accessibility component. So we'd be looking at purchasing an outside portion to add into this piece from Final Site. So Catapult, great customer service, very hands-on company. Conversations with them, they've been very responsive with us. There are no limits on file sizes, no limits on the number of users that we would have. We did speak with some people that are using them. Again, ease of use is a big thing that came across. It's not a new company. They've also been there for 20 plus years. They have districts that are even much larger than we are, and they kind of tout themselves on sort of a fast response time and really helping to solve support issues, so very customer focused. There are a few cons that we wanted to say. That the layout as far as the homepage goes, we'd kind of have a structure we'd establish, and it wouldn't be like, oh, let's just totally flip everything on its side and redesign the entire website. There'd be some ability, but there would certainly be cost and time behind that, and not as much fluidity there. Although I would tell you that the one time we have made major changes, it was a lot of work and kind of retraining everybody on where to go. So it's not something we often do. Both of these, you'll see we have included pricing on an app. We got rid of our app that we had with Blackboard because it was kind of a landing page for links to other apps. It wasn't really integrating with the things that we had in place, and these apps with both of these companies would allow us to have some more integration, so we believe an app would bring value to the district. Our final recommendation was Catapult, again, based a lot around that customer orientation. Responsible. They're very responsive. You'll see when we show you the contract cost, it's a very stable cost, predictable cost. There's not a lot of add-ons or things that we think would come in last minute. They do have a number of other platforms we could add. We'll throw a quick one. There's some capacity around something that may meet our needs as far as like emergency communications and some things that they're looking at in the student services world that Catapult also brings to the table. So there's options here to integrate even beyond what our communications department needs would be. They do have a lot of experience with very large districts nationwide, positive references, and so on. So they do have customers sitting on our new student information system that we're integrating to, so we were able to have some conversations and make sure that that's not going to be a concern. Hard to read, I'm sorry, but I just want to point out at the very bottom there, yellow is our Blackboard contract as it stands today. $69,550 is the fixed cost for all of the 4 remaining years on that contract. However, if we were to migrate over to the final site and make that known prior to June 30th, that first year costs would jump from the 69 to 121 to 70, and that is inclusive of the full conversion cost over. So you'll see that drop a little bit in year 2 at 99,000, but then it does climb over those years, 101, 103, and 105. The column right next to that, however, if we were to say that we are going to just stay with Blackboard and migrate over to the final site product, and not have that verbal commitment, or not verbal, I guess probably written commitment to them by June 30th of this year, that design expense for year 1 and migrating over jumps to $274,900. So it's big. So that they're clearly incentivizing their customers to make their decisions now as to whether or not they plan to stay on the legacy platform or move over. And then Catapult is the final column at the very end there. So year 1 would be 125. Again, that is inclusive of those conversion costs on year 1, which are a little higher. And then we drop back down to the $83,783, and that's consistent for the next 4 years on that one. So again, a little bit more consistency in the pricing, which is what we were used to, and not nearly as much money to make that initial conversion over. So we're here to answer any questions.
That was really thorough. Thank you for all the hard work that went into that. So the finalist you chose, you'd mentioned the app. We had pulled the app from the district website. Occasionally that comes up in questions. Why don't we have the app? You feel that even with the less robust app options, it's still an improvement over what we had?
Yeah, so the new app would have more integration. Part of the reason we actually got rid of the Blackboard app is the Blackboard app was no longer supporting even our standard news feeds. So we push a simple picture of students getting an award, and the picture would just come through distorted. You wouldn't be able to read the message, etc. So on the Catapult K-12 app, the news is back to being integrated. Push notifications can come back to our devices. So if we have an emergency, if we have weather closings, things like that, that all is functional again. And in my conversations with some of the other consumers of the Catapult product, they are finding that it's very successful and works very well. So they're confident in that product. And then they say if things go wrong, where we had issues with our previous vendor, Catapult is very responsive if something breaks. In the rare case it breaks, they say, because it doesn't usually. But they said they're very responsive, and then if a break happens, they'll typically get it fixed within under a week, under a day for common small issues, even less. They're 2-hour response time typical.
Thank you.
And the only thing I saw that was a major difference in price, it was roughly $17,000 was for the mass communication system. So I think you just described one feature. I was going to ask what are the benefits that we're getting for that balance?
Yeah, in the Catapult K-12 product, we get some built-in newsletter functionality that comes at a premium. So every school kind of has a couple of built-in templates as well that come with that product. So that way, if you're familiar with how our parent messages come out right now, we typically get them through a third-party vendor. Our principals independently sign up for newsletters to get a nice little template. Same with our district parent message. That would actually end up built directly into the Catapult K-12 product. There are add-ons that are available in other systems. Final Site does have a little bit more of that communication as well for their mass comms piece. It's just very different on how they propose them.
Yeah, so the basic functionality of the mass communication systems for us was the integration to the SIS is number one. We have to make sure we can pull that data over regularly. and then the ability to communicate in a number of fashions: email, text, phone calls, posting directly to social media sites or to a website or whatever that looks like. So, I mean, there is a difference there, but again, it's just where the difference lies in the proposals. We broke this down really far for you. Really, the bottom dollar there is really what's important. We would never, not never, at this point in time, we aren't comfortable separating the two systems from the different providers. We feel there's a lot of continuity when we have both the website and the communications together. So while they differ a little bit in some areas, I think you'd see they dramatically make up for it in others.
I have a few questions. First of all, I want to say that you've been doing a great job with the website that we do have. You've made some very significant changes. It's been a lot easier to navigate. Still, you are, I know, kind of handcuffed by the actual structure of what it is. With regard, page 3, you were sharing who looked into this and evaluated it. Did we talk to building admins, to your point, but you said that they all have their own sites, and did we ask parents?
So no, because what we would ask for, and we will, but I feel like what they see, so this is kind of the structure behind the scenes, and then the ability, as long as the structure allows for user interface to be friendly on the other side, when we build that structure about where they'd want content and how frequently they'd want content to change and what menus and such look like, that's when we really need the input of kind of the end user and the second to last user. As far as the structure behind all the coding and building and integration and all of that, that would be really very minimal as to who would understand what that means and what we were looking at between these providers. So Scott was really our expert in that area, but once we choose a provider for what that looks like, then now that we would have sort of the bare bones, then as we build the structure from that, that's when the input from those that use it to edit it and those that use it as a resource would really be valuable.
I built a lot of websites in my time, and I do think that user experience should always be loaded up front. That's just my personal opinion and what has worked for me. But did we also ask the different schools for insight into this, since they are the ones that are using this to update?
So we did, in our last couple webmaster meetings that we have monthly with the independent building level webmasters that kind of manage each of the 25 sites, schools and district, we did talk about this potential migration, different vendors, what's different between the ones. Most people were comfortable. There weren't a lot of questions about what was presented at the time. It was a limited presentation, but the concerns is the difference, and again, it gets into minute details in the back end that most of the public's just not familiar with, the quantity of work that goes into how to complete a simple task. You know, when you're on the website, you see something as simple as, I want to read a story about the cheer team winning an award, and I just want to read that, right? And I want to see it, I want to see the students' names. For the back-end user, they have to pick a photo, they have to add some little text, they have to write that article. And the differences between these systems are, you know, we have a current one that has maybe 10 clicks, we'll call it, 10 little items that webmaster needs to fill in. And then on Final Site, it can go up to closer to 25 to 30 things that you need to do. And then on Catapult, it's back to the more familiarity of around 10. It might even be a little less, like 8. So seeing those little differences, you know, there were things where it's like, how much work is this going to become? If you go with one vendor versus a different one, it's different levels of work, and that does concern certain webmasters and how much time it would take. But ultimately, at the end of the day, for each of those buildings, it's how much time will it take to complete the simple task, put the news out there, and make effective communication for their building. And there are a couple of building admin that are a part of those meetings as well, but they're on as a stipend role.
And I think if you're seeing that their content management tool is definitely better than what we have.
It's similar.
Okay.
Every content management system is going to be different, and there are learning curves with everything. You probably heard this when you heard about the SIS and migrating from one SIS to another. There's always going to be different buttons, different clicks, different things like that. It's the same with the content management system. You're learning a whole new little sandbox to play in, and there are things that will be the same, and there are things that will be different. And what we're seeing is in the Catapult K-12 product, more familiarity than the final site product at this time because of, yes, you get more flexibility in the final site product. Yes, at the end of the day, you can do probably more if you're really advanced. However, that advancement comes at a cost of, can every teacher access it? And also the Catapult K-12 product gives you, any teacher can call their support. Any one of our faculty can call the support line and get support through them, not just through myself. There's a
I think
whole
that's
nother
a key.
support.
That's a key point right there. Yeah. On page 5, you were saying that they are very responsive. Are you saying that from your perspective, they've been very responsive?
Both the references said that when they were talking about, and like Scott said, they're 2 hours. You know, if they can get something figured out, they put it at the top priority right away.
Okay.
But they're not seeing anything really outside of a week as far as the larger problems go, but also responsiveness in the way that we met with them, talked with them. You know, they presented stuff to Scott, and then he's like, hey, I'd like somebody else to see it. So we bring another person in, and can we do it a third time because we want these people to see it? And every time it was met with just eagerness to really, you know, partner with schools. And so it's dramatically different than the experience we have at this time with our current provider.
But, and in all fairness, it's the sales, like being in the sales funnel, you expect them to kind of be like on their game, right?
Sure, which is why we did that with the references.
Knowing that you reached out to references,
Mhm.
really what I wanted to hear. So, and then if you were to do this, when would the transition take place? So for all of our schools, if they had to train on this, is it gonna happen over the summer? We're not doing it at like the beginning of the school year or the end of the school year?
No, it would have to be at a time when we would be able to move content without there being a bunch of new content being added at the same time. I hesitate to answer it for you until we finish our discussions with legal as far as like our contracts and all of those kind of things go. If everything were to move forward and it was a possibility for this coming school year, it'd be something we'd start on right away. The bulk majority of the work, like probably 95% of it, will fall, you know, on Scott in coordination with them. The schools themselves will have to learn the new CMS side, but again, there's some familiarity there, and that's really more about like fonts and layouts and templates and those kind of things. They wouldn't be responsible for the actual migration of content and usability of the product itself. So yes, if it is possible for us to have it going for this coming school year, it would something we would start right now, and all of that integration would be occurring over the summer.
Well, I more worry about our administrators having to learn, whoever that is, whoever's taking it at each school, having to learn something at the beginning of the school year when it's there's just a lot going on. And then what else is on their plate at that time that they have to? Is there new curriculum? Is there new this? Is there new that?
Yeah, so Scott does a great job with training. We do have a webmaster at each location, which is kind of their mini expert at the building that can handle and has capacity, mini expert at the building that can handle and has capacity, as well as training on how to do all of those things as far as learning like a new mass communication system and things. I think that's why there would be benefit to, if it does work to transition at the same time as we transition with the SIS, there's going to be new communication mechanisms within that, and so it's training, we could kind of train side by side. So if you're looking to send an email to a parent, you know, regarding something with student discipline or whatever, I'm using an example here, and you're working within the SIS, this is how you would do this. Now if you're looking at trying to send your school's newsletter out school-wide, here's how you would do this. And so really kind of training and knowing both, because there is overlap and there always will be between those. systems, so it would be a great time to train it instead of training one thing with this system and then switching systems and training something with a new system again.
This is a totally random question, but who typically at a school handles the website, or does it vary from school to
So
school?
we do have stipend webmaster positions at every school.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So those
And-
all report up to Scott. He trains them on a regular basis as far as accessibility and functions within the CMS system, and then a number of our building administrators also have access, and some of the secretaries, they'll post their events on their calendar or post a newsletter. But as far as overall, that's really the responsibility of the building webmaster at each school.
Okay. I'm assuming it's kind of bare minimum at this point of entry, but all social media is integrated into.
No, it's not all. So we do have functionality within our mass comms when we want stuff to go out to social media as another source to receive the information, like you do with a text or an email. So we can push things to post through the mass communications, but actually creating and posting a number of our social media things is a separate task because the information isn't always going out through mass comms to get to the website. So it kind of depends on what the point of, we have all these different places we can put things on the website and on social media platforms and newsletters and so on. And so as we get information in within the department, we kind of have a matrix to decide where it's going to land. And so it's not full integration to social media, but we do have the capacity of things that are going out through this system to hit social media. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? We're good? All right.
So more to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for staying.
Thank you.
All right, action item 9.1, approval of bills for payment. Can I have a motion, please?
I would love to give you one. I make a motion to authorize the payment of bills in the amount of $28,633,140.17 as presented.
Second.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Action item 9.2, approval of settlement agreement with Jewel Labs. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to authorize the school board to enter into the settlement offer for government entity claims against Jewel Labs, Inc., and direct President Simulton to sign and return the February 18th, 2023 settlement offer for government entity claims against Jewel Labs, Inc., letter and the government entity release of all claims.
Second.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Action item 9.3, approval of resolution authorizing dismissal of probationary teachers. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve this resolution authorizing dismissal and non-employment of probationary part-time teachers and teachers hired under a temporary contract.
Second.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Action item 9.4, approval of resolution authorizing dismissal of first-year teachers. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve this resolution authorizing dismissal and non-employment of first-year probationary teachers.
Second.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Action item 9.5, approval of resolution authorizing dismissal of third-year teachers.
Second.
Can I have a motion, please?
You missed
Come on now, let's go.
probationary.
I said, whoa, see, that's not in my thing, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I should be reading it from
Let's
up
go.
there then?
I make a motion to approve this resolution authorizing dismissal and non-reemployment of third-year probationary teachers.
Second.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle? Aye. Ms. Simulton?
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Okay. 9.5, or 6.
Six.
Approval
Six.
of resolution authorizing dismissal and non-reemployment of fourth-year probationary teachers.
I make a motion to approve this resolution authorizing dismissal and non-reemployment of fourth-year probationary teachers.
Second.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. 9.7, approval of resolution authorizing non-renewal and administrative contracts and non-reemployment of administrators.
I make a motion to approve this resolution authorizing non-renewal of administrative contracts and non-reemployment of administrators.
Second.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Action item 9.8, approval of building administrator contracts.
I make a motion to approve the building administrator contract as presented.
Second.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
A resounding aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Action item 9.9, approval of personnel report. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
Second.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. 10.1, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
passes 6-0. We are now adjourned.